What's up, Sifters? We're here for GameFace episode 67, and it is our mission to make gaming great again. We've got an amazing show for you guys tonight. We're going to have a really good time talking about, I think we have like 15 topics tonight. Among those, we are going to talk about Mass Effect Andromeda. We're going to talk about the snowboarding genre and try to figure out whether it's even worth pursuing anymore.
Plus, we're going to go on a new VR odyssey with Robinson the Journey, and we're going to look at what is not right with Dishonored 2.
We're also going to talk about a video game franchise that is back from the dead and The Last Guardian. Let's do it. So, Matt, I have a confession to make.
What?
I don't think I can do VR, man.
No?
No, I don't think I can.
Like physically, you can't do VR?
Yeah, I don't think I have the constitution for VR. Like, you know, when I was trying it at conventions and things like that, and just trying it for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, I was fine. But now that I've had PlayStation VR for several weeks, and more specifically playing this game, Robinson, the Journey that we're going to talk about, and trying to play it for extended periods of time, I can't do it. There's like a very definitive point, like right around like the 10 to 15 minute mark, where I get so sick. I mean sick.
There are some
like
people
Jaws
who are,
Unleashed sick. I was playing it last night, and again I got to that 15 minute mark, and I literally thought I was going to barf. I started burping, like I was going to get sick, and I took the helmet off and laid there on the couch for like an hour and never really started feeling any better and just went to bed. Last night was the earliest I've gone to bed in months.
Wow.
I just couldn't do it, man. I felt like death, and it sucks. Like, I love it up until that point where I get sick, and I just don't know what I can do. It's like I'm not going to take Dramamine to play a video game. Like, I just...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't.
You don't have any problems with it at all.
No, I mean, not like that. I mean, when I play Robinson, like I set it to smooth controls on Robinson, which is like basically, you know,
it's like a first-person shooter.
First-person shooter, like you're using both sticks to move. Like you have to use the headset, your actual head, to look up and down. But in terms of, you know, turning and back and forth and side-to-side movement, you're moving like a first-person shooter. The other options are like pie, like you move like you teleport like a pie chart around like I think 8 directions, and then like there's another one that like, you know, it's like an old adventure game. It like quick scrolls you from pie.
I had it set up like that, and that I don't think that helps.
No, actually. I found that disorienting.
Yeah.
It didn't make me sick, but I just found it annoying, so I just switched to smooth.
What is the thinking behind that?
I think this thinking is that if you're not showing your brain as much, the less like movement you're showing your brain that isn't being reflected by the movement of your body, the less likely you'll get sick. Like that's also why there's like the teleporting movement stuff in like a lot of the room space games.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like when I played the first game I played that had actual first-person shooter movement in VR was in I think Spellbook VR or something on the Vive. And the first I moved forward, like I pressed forward to move, and I almost fell over, like physically fell over, because like my brain was like, whoa, what was that? It was, you know, it was like being on a roller coaster kind of thing. And when I play Robinson, I do get like a quick moments of vertigo now and again, but it's not anything bad, and nothing has ever made me feel nauseous, ever.
Really?
The closest anything got was probably Drive Club VR, but that's just because there was like 3 specific
everyone
turns.
Says that makes them
yeah,
sick.
I mean, people call it the vomit comet, but like there's 3 specific turns in the demo of Drive Club that made me dizzy every single time. And I mean, I'll just say, like, I don't get nauseous.
See, I don't either.
Anything.
Like, I can ride the craziest roller coasters in the world all day. I don't get car sick. I've never got motion sickness in my life. Like, it is blowing my mind. And what I found is that when it happens is if I've been sitting still for an extended period of time and then I move. And literally that first step that I take in VR, like my whole body feels like it's just flipping upside down. Like, I don't know what it is, man, but I can't. I feel like I'm torturing myself, like playing VR. It sucks, man. And to get kind of on topic here, like, I want to play this game. Robinson the Journey is, for me, you know, I haven't had Vive and Rift all this time. it's the first like real VR game that I've played.
I'll be honest, someone who does have Vive, this is one of the first real games in VR I've run into as well. I mean,
really?
Well, in terms of it actually feeling like an actual game and not like a tech demo, like, yeah, this is, again, like I said before on the PlayStation VR stuff, like the PlayStation VR is coming out with actual games that we would recognize as games that we might play even if it wasn't in VR, you know? And this is another example. You know, most of what I have on Vive is early access stuff, and a lot of the stuff that is like a real game kind of thing are still in early access. Like Raw Data. Raw Data will eventually be a great real game. Right now, it's got like 2 levels or something last time I played it. So it's like this being like a finished title that you can actually play from start to finish. Like, I mean, it's rough in places. There's, you know, animals run through walls, and like, you know, it's not perfect, but it looks nice. It's, you know, it's a CryEngine. It's pretty. It's got that promise of like dinosaurs up in your face.
But
like,
I mean, it's an actual game.
Yeah.
It's like,
and you're constantly scanning stuff for information, which for some reason apparently is the thing I like the most in video games. So, judging by this year, I love scanning beetles. Like, that's all I've been doing in this game.
we should probably set up what this game's all about. So basically, you're on this ship that crash lands on this planet.
Crash land on an alien planet, and you're the only survivor as far as you know. You're a young boy with your helper floaty orb thing, which seems to be a real constant in VR games. Very, very reminiscent of like a crankier version of Wheatley. From,
I mean, this game
Portal.
is Portal. I mean, it even has like a gravity. Like, this is like a Valve wannabe VR game.
Yeah, but like the weird thing about it is like, okay, so you're stranded on an alien planet, and there's dinosaurs everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I get, like, they're kind of like, the animals are all like, you know, there's mice and dragonflies and beetles, and like it's all Earth animals, but like, if you look at them in the little encyclopedia thing, they're not quite Earth animals. You know, like the mouse is actually like kind of a mouse armadillo thing.
Yeah.
And like the T-Rexes actually have, you know, horns, and they look a little different. The snakes have tiny little legs, which makes me wonder why they're called snakes.
Yeah.
But it seems like basically they're cataloging
rough approximations.
They're
of
cataloging these
dinosaurs.
alien animals as equivalents of Earth animals.
And that's
but
a
it's
big
pretty
part
convenient.
Of this. Yeah, and that's a big part of this game too. Actually, is cataloging and scanning animals.
Yeah, tons of scanning, and I like how they do because you know, most of the scanning you run into in games is like point your thing at the thing, press the button, or hold the button, and it scans it.
Yeah.
In this one, like, you have to run your view point over little green dots in the animal.
Well, here's the other thing we should mention is the cursor is controlled by where you look.
Yeah, it's all by viewpoint.
That took me a while to get used to.
It's a different way to do things compared, especially the way it controls. Because like looking at this footage, you might think that this game uses the motion controller, but it does not.
No.
At least not yet.
It uses no controller.
It uses the normal DualShock.
Yeah.
Which is
and
super
all you're using that for is to push a button.
Yeah, pushing buttons and move. You know, you move with the left stick and you turn with the right stick, but you look with the headset.
Yeah.
And then, like, I mean, it's weird because the character, as you can see, is holding a move controller.
Pretty much exactly a move controller, but you do not use.
The move controller. I would suspect that's going to be patched in later.
Yeah.
But it's super weird that you would design the game to have the character holding like a Portal-y move controller and then not support the move controller.
I mean, the game itself is pretty much a puzzle game.
Yeah, it's like an adventure game.
Some of them are overt, where you literally have to like move objects and put them together and stuff like that. Sometimes the puzzles are worked in so that like you have to climb up to a peak so you can get to a point to scan some of the bigger dinosaurs. You play as a young boy, and at the beginning you get like this pet dinosaur, basically. You see the little baby dinosaur hatch.
Which comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's from that original demo they showed.
Right,
where
it is, yeah.
The T-Rex, baby
Except
T-Rex
the-
hatches.
except the big T-Rex
and then
never
the big
shows
T-Rex
up.
comes. Yeah, and this one you just see it. But like, it gives you like this screen. It's like the, you know, tragedy happened with the ship. One boy survived in the landing craft. And then it just cuts to
You're next to
you're with the
dinosaur
egg,
nest, yeah.
and it opens up, and the dinosaur comes out, and you feed her, and you say, "I'm going to call her Laika," and then it cuts to 3 months later.
Yeah.
And you're sort of established in this base camp, and I didn't notice it until a sec, because I played it last night on PS4, and then I played it today to about the same point on PS4 Pro to see what the difference would be, if there was any. And the second time I picked up, because I noticed I didn't see the calendar before in the first playthrough. I picked it up, and like, it's been clear that they've been on this planet a year. So between the little, you know, still picture of the boy survived thing and the finding of the egg, that's a gap of 9 months. And then 3 months, more months pass between finding the egg and when you start to play. And I'm like, that's a real rocky start.
Yeah, that's
like
tough.
narratively speaking. Like that's a weird. I mean, it makes me wonder if there was a lot more like survival stuff early on that they decided was like too boring, or
Could be.
they didn't finish and decided to just jump to the dinosaurs, or like. I mean, it feels like they really throw you into it. It almost feels like playing a demo at an event or like a trade show because
Yeah,
like there's
bit.
no setup at all for like, oh, boom, you're in. Good work surviving for so long. I'm like, thanks, great.
I'll say one thing: the footage that we showed, like when it first started, like when you first run into the first brontosaurus, that's a pretty amazing moment.
Yeah.
When you look up and you just see this gigantic frickin' dinosaur.
Mm-hmm. It's like it's like that thing, the blue that I talked about with the blue whales. Like when you see the footage on like 2D screen, you're like, oh, fine, cool, it's a big thing. No, when you're there, it's as big as it's supposed to be compared to you, and your brain's like, that's a large creature. I mean, even when you load up the Infopedia thing and it shows you the T-Rex, it pops the T-Rex up right in front of your face.
Right.
The first time I did, I'm like, whoa. Hey, teeth. But yeah, I mean, the spectacle is definitely there. I do think it's a little clearer on the PlayStation 4 Pro.
Yeah.
But I can't fully tell. Like, when I woke up in the pod at the beginning, I thought it was, like, the text on the walls and stuff was easier to read from just standing there and looking around. But I don't know if that was for real or if it was because I already knew what it said from
There's
playing
all
it before.
kinds of funky LOD going on in this
Yeah.
game.
And there's also
like if you look up at the trees, you can see a very clear line where everything pops into detail.
And there's a lot of pop in on the ground of like foliage, and there's also a weird like halo effect where like the outside third of the screen is clearly not this, like inside is like a little brighter and a little more detailed. It's almost like it's like the LOD line you usually see on like a horizon in a video game
is there
on the like the 1/3 angle of the screen. And when you take your goggles off and look at it on the TV screen, it's not like that.
Yeah, when you look at what you see,
what you're seeing here is much clearer than what you see in the goggles.
It's like night and day. Like I took off the head-mounted display and looked at the TV, and I was like, "Holy crap, this game looks amazing!"
Yeah,
but I'm not looking at it through the PlayStation VR helmet. But at the same time, it is the best looking PlayStation VR game by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah, certainly in terms of like realistic looking games. I mean, you might like the art style of Thumper better or something, but in terms of like just visual fidelity of like a real world realistic thing, I think that's for sure true. I mean, Batman looks pretty good, but Batman is much more limited.
I've actually not played that yet.
Batman looks good, but it looks more limited because you can't move, really,
right.
So what they're doing here is more impressive, even if Batman maybe has a little higher visual fidelity of like just what you're looking at.
Yeah. It also seems to be a pretty long game. I'm about 3.5, 4 hours into it.
Yeah, and if you look at the collectible thing, like the list, because all the collectible stuff is lock. Like there's a lot of them. Like there's the communicator things and the orbs, and there's like 6 orbs and like 12 communicators, and I've only found like 2 of them, and I'm just like, wow, I guess there must be something to this.
I don't know if I can finish it, man. Like I seriously think that the motion sickness I'm getting from it, I don't know if I can do it.
Well, that's unfortunate.
It sucks. Like I'm wondering if I need glasses or something. Like I don't know.
Well, you would need contacts. You don't want to wear glasses in these things.
Yeah, I guess not.
That's why I'm not wearing my glasses. You can tell if I played VR on a Thursday because I'm not wearing my glasses on the show.
But it would really suck if, like, there's this new frontier of gaming that I am unable to participate in. Like, it really has me scared.
I feel like, there's probably a percentage of the population that is just never going to be able to adjust. I feel like, maybe you just need to... I don't know. Like, I can't tell... I can't give you, like, solid advice because it doesn't happen to me. But I don't... I've probably thrown up like 5 times in my life. It just doesn't happen.
You don't drink enough then.
Oh, those are the only times I've done it. Like I had some bad flus as a kid, and then like I think three times I've thrown up from being too drunk, and that's it. Like that's more of a toxic reaction than anything else.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I got sick from drinking. It's probably like 15 years ago, maybe.
Oh, there were a couple G4 parties.
Oh, really? You got sick? I think my tolerance is at a place now where I think I just know myself, and I know when I get to that line where I'm like, I shouldn't have.
It was usually the thing where I would drink. I would be drinking, while everybody'd say, I drink, cool, and then like the party would kind of break up.
And then you're like, oh my God.
You go home and like you're just like, oh, everything's really moving. Like,
thank God for Uber.
Well, these were usually after the parties at Busby's down the street from G4 because that was near my apartment, so I would just walk home.
All right.
And of course when you're walking home, it's just like I can drink however much I want,
right,
so I would just ruin myself doing that.
We've all been there. We've all done it.
And that's a lot more fun than getting sick in VR, really.
Oh yeah. So. Yeah, I don't know.
Or at least the fun part lasts longer.
Yeah.
Not like 15 minutes of walking with dinosaurs and then it's like, oh.
So, I don't know if you know or not, but in Europe, this game is full price.
Yeah, I saw that. That's ridiculous.
In the U.S., it's $40.
Mm-hmm. And I got it on Amazon Prime for $30.
Which I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
I don't know why that is. Like, that's a weird... I mean, is it all Europe or is it just UK?
I don't know. That's a good question,
because that could be a Brexit thing.
It might be, actually. That's actually a good point.
Yeah,
I don't know, though. Maybe someone in the chat from Europe knows.
But I definitely saw that being talked about, and I was surprised because that's. I mean, yeah. Sometimes we get some discrepancy, but there's no way this is a full price game.
No way. No. And that was what I was getting at. That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think it's worth the full price?
No. I mean, $40 is pretty good. If you have Amazon Prime, get it for $30. Like I feel pretty good about getting it for $30.
Yeah.
But like. No, $60 for this is not remotely.
I would never pay $60 for this game. I mean, I wouldn't pay anything for it now because it makes me sick.
Well, yeah, but like, but it's just like it's not. I mean, it's cool. It's a more of a real game to play on VR than a lot of other games you could have, particularly the ones that are usually the dinosaur stuff on VR so far. It's just like, look at the dinosaur.
That's it.
Bye. Like that's it. Like you don't get anything out of it. But like. This one has a lot more meat to it in terms of just a world that they put you in that you can watch these things move around. Like I think in some ways like this, the experience of this is more like what people were expecting or hoping for from No Man's Sky.
Yeah, for sure.
Like a world that feels like it's alive and has a biosphere and animals that are clearly preying on one another and like you see like these little things live in little gopher holes and like oh look at the thing runs into the hole. Oh, that's cool. And then like I was looking at a butterfly over by the river, and one of the things in the gopher holes jumps out and grabs it and jumps back in the hole. I'm like, whoa, okay. Like there's an actual ecosystem happening here, and
it's also
cool.
Crazy too how in VR things that are mundane in other games are like mind bending. Like just a butterfly flying by, you're like, holy crap, and you like start running after the butterfly. There's things in normal games that you don't even notice anymore that in VR are fascinating.
Or even just like seeing like a lizard on a tree, and the fact that you can kind of lean around the side of it and look at this.
Or like there was one point where I was like near this terminal and there was a big insect that ran down the terminal. I did exactly what you're talking about. I like turned my head to the side so I could see the side profile of the insect as it ran. It's just crazy how much that perspective shift changes everything. I just wish it didn't make me want to barf. It'd be great.
That would be nice. Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about something that has me pissed off. Something else that has me pissed off. So I don't know if you know or not, but this was you may not know.
I know.
This is the 30th anniversary of Metroid. And you think back to what Nintendo has done for all its other franchises. Zelda's 25th, they did the orchestral concerts all around the country.
But don't forget that Zelda's anniversaries are the same as Metroid's. And when Zelda had its 25th anniversary, that's when they had that fan art of like in the background there's everybody celebrating Zelda, and up front it's just like Samus and one Metroid is giving her a little cupcake with a candle on it. It's just like, no one cares about Metroid when it's time to celebrate Zelda.
But we care. We do care about Metroid.
Metroid is probably my second favorite Nintendo franchise after Zelda.
And Nintendo has done nothing for this. Nothing at all.
Nintendo has done nothing for Metroid for a very long time.
It's insane.
Not just anniversary-wise. Don't give me that Federation Force was a bone thrown to me bullshit, because it's not. And Other M was terrible. So the last good Metroid game that I played was Metroid Prime 3.
Yeah.
And that was how many years ago? 8, 9?
Has it been that long?
What was that, 2007, 2008?
Yeah. 2000.
It wasn't too long into the Wii's lifespan.
Yeah, I guess it was 2007, I think it was, yeah. So, wow.
Been a long time.
Holy cow. That's pretty crazy to think about. But what made me think of this topic today is that I got an email from Nintendo today saying, this is the capper of our Metroid 30th anniversary celebration. And it was like a theme.
What is it?
It was like a theme for the 3DS. Ugh. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? This is your big overture?
Theme for how about a game for the 3DS?
But they did nothing for this franchise at all.
No.
for the 30th anniversary.
They haven't done anything. I mean, it's not as bad as being an F-Zero fan, which hasn't had a game since the GameCube. And that GameCube game was great. But
I mean,
we went to the launch of that
I
together.
know.
I remember that. We came out like, that's the music from Mute City is amazing. And like, that's the last great moment of F-Zero.
Yeah, I actually, like, my hockey bag, like, what I keep all my gear in is an F-Zero GX
Yeah, I remember
bag.
that, yeah.
And I took it to, like, people come and go from our hockey game. People will show up for a few weeks and never come again. And like, one guy showed up to our game one day, and he was like, holy shit, where did you get that bag? And I was like, oh, I've been in games for like 20 years or whatever. I'm like, they gave it to me at some point when it came out. And he just was going off about F-Zero GX. And the crazy part about F-Zero GX is if you actually stuck with it, you could possibly still be playing that game today and not completed it. It's one of the
that game was hard.
It's one of the hardest games I've ever played in my life. Like, the story mode in that game was just ridiculous. Yeah. Holy cow.
It was so good.
It was so good. It felt so good. It's 60 frames per second.
I always bring up F-Zero when I complain about Metroid because I recognize that there are fans of Nintendo franchise that have it worse than we Metroid fans. But Metroid also has more of a pedigree.
Yeah.
And has been neglected in certain ways more.
Like, they're not going to celebrate the anniversary of F-Zero. That's
Probably
just not going to happen.
I mean, maybe you'll get like a Falcon Punch tweet
or
something. That's about it.
Tweet, that's all you can ask for.
Just a reminder that they remember they own it.
Yeah. I'd even actually be surprised with a tweet at this point.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I guess I wish I could say it surprises me that Nintendo continues to neglect Metroid. I mean, I don't know if there's like some kind of resentment over the fact that the Western company had to like bring it into the modern age, and then they tried to make, the Team Ninja version was not well received, so they just sort of back, like Nintendo does. Like, if something's not well received, they sort of back off of it forever, rather than trying to figure out why it went wrong, Star Fox. And the whole thing is really, and meanwhile, you're like, why, especially when that Metroid 2 fan remake came out earlier this year, which, by the way, is the best celebration of the 30th anniversary
You're right.
available.
That's a good point. That is the best way to celebrate the 30th anniversary, because Nintendo couldn't be bothered.
Nintendo's not going to do it. And it's like, it just drives home against, like, why didn't you just, like, send the 3DS off with a great 2D Metroid game? Yeah. And I've actually seen people say, like, 2D Metroid is, like, old hat, and they've done everything they could do. We don't need another 3D Metroid. And I'm like, or another 2D Metroid. And I'm like, there have been 4 2D Metroids in 30 years.
Yeah.
Five if you count the remake.
Saturated,
And 3 of those 4 were made before I was out of high school.
Yeah.
So don't tell me there's nothing else they can do with that form of Metroid. They've got a lot of room to play with.
There's indie Metroidvanias coming out every freaking week. Like,
you could do a lot with it. I mean, hell, the Metroid 2 remake does a lot with it.
It does, yeah. Matt, what is your favorite Metroid of all time? And we're by golly, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary. Let's give a fist bump for Metroid.
Big ups to the Samus Massive. I really like Zero Mission and Prime 1, but I gotta go with Super Metroid. Super Metroid just solidified that subgenre in a way that everything that came after it still draws
It's still being imitated.
Yeah.
It's tough for me, because I think at one point in my life, I think I called Super Metroid my favorite game of all time.
I think Super Metroid would probably make my top 10 of all time.
That was a long time ago. And then I played Metroid Prime.
Metroid Prime is amazing.
I don't know. It's a tough call.
Well, to me, it's like choosing between A Link to the Past and Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
It's like I love both of them. Maybe I like Ocarina better, but I think maybe I just like Ocarina better because it realized what Link to the Past did, but in 3D. But like Link to the Past with the original, so like it's like you can't like it's they give you the same thing, but in such a different way. It's hard to say you would want one over the other. But I just come down on the Super Metroid side because like I was like 16 and it was like it just blew my mind.
Honestly, I think it's Metroid Prime for me because. Look, there are tons of side-scrolling games when Metroid came out. In fact, every game was pretty much a side-scrolling game when Super Metroid came out. But Metroid Prime, when it came out, there had been tons of shooters and tons of 3D games at that point. But no game had ever played the way that game played.
And it was like so much I mean, I think we all had so much skepticism about it.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
like, you're doing what with Metroid? You're going to make it like a first-person... You're going to make it Halo? Like everyone,
Oh, yeah. It was
and then
scandalous.
you got your
Retro
hands on
Studios
it.
was in like
Oh,
a
yeah.
scandal over it.
Oh, yeah. But then you got your hands on it, you're like, oh, somehow they translated it properly.
I mean, look, there's all these franchises from the 2D days that get brought over into 3D, and almost all of them suck. This was the first really game to bring a 2D property into 3D and nail everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Super Mario 64 obviously nailed a lot about the 2D side-scrolling Marios, but this game nailed everything. Like, the atmosphere. Like, this is one of the first games that I've ever felt isolated in, where I just felt, like, claustrophobic and, like, just everything about it. It's just a work of art, man. Like, you can just tell that whoever made this, one, loved Metroid, two, totally got what Metroid was all about and what made it great, and three, were really, really good at what they do.
Yeah. And also, like, if you have the ability to, like, because I pulled a lot of my old GameCube discs to play on Dolphin, and if you play this game in Dolphin, could have been made a couple years ago.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Dolphin's amazing.
How good
anyway.
this thing looks.
Dolphin is just an incredible emulator.
And like just the little touches, like the way, even, I mean, back in the day, I mean, everybody was always, the big thing was like when you blew something up, you shot like, your big blast, you could see the reflection of Samus's face in the visor.
All those little
like,
touches, man. The condensation that builds up, and like,
just great work. And and again, one of those games that has like kind of the backstory of Miyamoto would come over and say everything was wrong and they had to start over like twice, and it's like it was that Nintendo commitment to like until it's good that I don't know where that went, but like or at least like I don't know where that went for the stuff that like Wii Music I feel did not go through that process. But like Metroid Prime came out of that just it was like it was almost like GoldenEye, where you played GoldenEye, you're like, why is this so good? Like I remember getting GoldenEye.
I mean, the music in Prime is amazing. Everything.
I just remember getting Metroid Prime was the same as like getting
design.
GoldenEye home, putting it in, and you're like, wait a minute, like I just wasn't ready for how good Prime was going to be, and I do
remember
like
it had like the crazy like lock-on aiming, so it didn't let you free aim. And at first I was like, oh, this is a terrible decision, and then I got it because they had built the whole game around that mechanic. And if they had just given you free look and aim, you wouldn't have been able to complete it. And so you could just see all the pieces just falling into place with this game. And I still don't think that I've ever played a game as atmospheric as this one. That just totally just sunk you into this world. It made you feel like it was you against the world.
It's definitely the yardstick. I think I was reminded of Metroid Prime a fair amount when I played Alien Isolation. I don't think Alien Isolation is as good as Metroid Prime, but like I feel Metroid took a lot of inspiration from the Alien franchise to begin with, and I think Alien Isolation sort of returned that favor. And Alien Isolation is at its best when it's doing a competent Metroid impression.
Yeah.
Although there's less shooting, but like. I mean, and that's the other thing about Metroid Prime is like there's really not a lot like it. Like if you're a fan of that series, there's not really something to replace it with.
Well, the crazy thing was when Metroid Prime came out, I was working at GameSpot, and just to be completely candid, when I worked at GameSpot, like pretty much the whole staff didn't like Nintendo. Like it had just come off like the N64. I got there just as the N64 was kind of ending. I think one of the first games I reviewed for GameSpot was Banjo-Tooie, and that came like right at the end of its life cycle. And then we transitioned into the GameCube era, and I think just a lot of the editors there had been burned by the N64, and just really, like, most of the people there did not like Nintendo. And I was coming from the site that I was running through college, which was an N64 and Dreamcast site, because I wanted to be like the future of games and focus on the platforms.
You ended up as the underdog of games.
I did, and I wanted to focus on like what I thought was like the most technologically advanced platforms. And the other problem too is that there was just so much stuff coming out for the PlayStation that I didn't have the time or the resources to do it. So it was perfect. Like the N64 put out a game like a month. Dreamcast, like the launch obviously was pretty good, but it kind of fell into that same pattern, so I was able to keep up with it. So I go to GameSpot, and they've all been playing PlayStation 1. Like, they were just huge PlayStation 1 fans. And I remember I went in there, and I was like, man, everybody here hates Nintendo. I'm like, this is really weird. And then I remember Greg Kasavin came in from his first night of playing Metroid Prime, and he was just freaking out. And I was like, dude, that game must be really freaking good, because like they slagged everything. Like even really good games from Nintendo, like they'd be like, I don't even care, and they just throw it at me. They're like, here you go, you can play it. I don't even want to play it. And I would be like, what? You don't want to play Eternal Darkness? Like, are you crazy?
Eternal Darkness was great.
But I remember when he came back, and he came into like the bullpen where all the editors were, and he just started going off about the game. And I was like, man, because he was a big PC gamer too. Like Greg had come kind of from the PC space and didn't play a lot of console stuff. And as soon as I heard Greg Kasavin going off about it, I was like, "Oh my god, this game must be just mind blowing," and it was. I think he gave it a perfect score. I think that was.
It might have been.
I think it was like at the time maybe GameSpot's second ever perfect score. I think even now they only have like 10 or something like that. Like they don't hand out the 10. They hand them out a lot more now than they used to. But.
Yeah, I mean there have been a couple questionable ones as I recall, but back then it was a rarity.
Yeah. Well, I remember Jeff gave Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 a perfect 10, which I actually can kind of understand.
I like 1 and 2 better than 3. I remember, and funny because I associate 3 with the GameCube because I got it at launch with the GameCube, midnight launch with the GameCube, and I got it home like, eh.
Well,
I went back to Rogue Leader very quickly.
Yeah, see, 3, was the first one that kind of really it created the trick system that was going to be used forever. Because it allowed you to link tricks in between objects by using reverse and manuals.
Right.
And so it completely changed how you play the game. And it was a lot more open and a lot more alive.
I just liked the way you played the game already. So that,
it was like an arcade game at first.
But I also felt like that, including the revert, stuff, also meant they no longer had to design the levels as carefully with all the lines you could find and all that stuff. It put the onus on sort of designing the level on the player more than the level. The levels in 1 and 2 are just such sublime works of art, basically. And when you remove the need, when what the player can do becomes like freeform like that, you sort of just scatter the tools around for them to use, and like it's not as compact. And I get why people thought that was like a step up, but that removed one of the things I loved the most about that series. So that was kind of the end of Tony Hawk for me.
I sat next to Ryan Davis, which was awesome because he was just like the fun. I hate to talk about him in past tense, but he was just the funniest person ever. So I just sat there next to him, and he just cracked jokes all day. And then Jeff had an office like behind us, and then he and Jeff would go back and forth. And Jeff Gerstmann's really freaking funny too. So I just sat there just like entertained like all day, every day.
Back before Jeff just was angry on podcasts.
Yeah. And then Tony Hawk 3 came out, and like Ryan at that point wasn't even an editor. He was the guy who would update all the images on the site. He would come up with the poll of the day every day that was posted on the page, but he was just like a web guy, basically. But so he had a lot of downtime, and so he would just play Tony Hawk 3, and he would set up the soundtrack so it would only play one song. And so I'd have to sit there and listen to the one song, and he knew it drove me crazy. So
I used to do that on Tony Hawk. Well, I would make it so it just played Police Truck over and over.
Well, that's a great song. The song that he chose was the Del the Funky Homo Sapien song that goes, "You better wash your ass." He would just play it over and over, and I get so mad. And it would get to the point where it'd like be all quiet, and that song would kick in, and I'd be like, "Ryan!" And he would just roll laughing, dude. Like, good times, man. It was really good times. But back on topic anyway. It's a shame what Nintendo's done with Metroid here. It definitely deserved better. It would have been great even if they could have just announced, like, hey, we're working on a Metroid for Switch.
Well, they haven't announced anything in terms of that for Switch, so maybe in January.
But how perfect would it have been if when they debuted the Switch for the first time, instead of showing the new 3D Mario game, they show a new Metroid game?
Yeah, but I think you're asking a lot.
I mean, Retro, how long has it been since Retro put out a game?
A while.
It's not all that, I'm not saying they're working on Metroid, but it's not all that far-fetched to think that Retro could have a game available at launch.
Yeah.
I mean...
Maybe.
Tropical Freeze, that came out, what?
That was a while ago.
2.5 years ago?
Yeah.
That could be a bombshell, dude. If Retro has a game ready at launch for...
Well, I don't think that Mario game is going to be ready at launch, so...
I don't know. Rumors are starting to swirl that it is. Think about the fact that Super Mario 3D World came out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That team has been sitting around. I mean, they're not sitting around. They're working, so... I don't know.
I mean, that'd be a big launch, but that also means there's going to be a big drought.
Hey, when you have 3 games that awesome to play out of the gate, like...
Yeah, but people are going to forget after a year.
I don't know, man.
They're just going to be like, well, I got this Zelda game and I got this Mario game, but now you got to wait 2+ probably 3 years for another Zelda. At least 2+ years for another Mario.
I don't think you'll get a second Zelda on Switch.
Yeah, maybe. The thing is, we got 2 Zelda games on the Wii.
Yeah.
It might happen.
Yeah,
assuming the Switch doesn't crash and burn the way the Wii U did. I think we were, obviously the timing didn't work out right for two Zeldas, but it's kind of an every other thing. You get one GameCube, Zelda, and then you got the dual Wii GameCube one at the end of the GameCube's life, which was the better one. And then kind of you got Skyward Sword at the end of the Wii, and then the Wii U didn't have anything at the beginning, but it got a lot of HD remasters, so it was just like a bad timing for the Zelda development, I guess.
Yeah.
For the Wii U, but I wouldn't, if a Zelda game hits at launch, I feel kind of okay saying we'll probably get a second one on that same system.
It's possible. Again, if it doesn't tank like the Wii U did.
Right. And even if it does, if let's say Zelda came out at launch for the Wii U, we would still probably be getting Breath of the Wild now too. I mean, it's Breath of the Wild seems like it's gone through a lot of iteration. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would be surprised to see Metroid come back for the Switch launch. That's for sure.
Take a guess. When do you think we'll play the next Metroid game? The next proper Metroid game, not like the handheld thing we just got.
2019.
2020.
Maybe.
I don't think Retro is going to make.
I don't think that's what they're making now.
Yeah. And so if you have to find some other studio to make a Metroid,
and what do you even make? Look, I would want it to be like the most gorgeous 2D game ever made. Frankly, or even if you just make it like make it Owlboy style, and I will play the shit out of that.
Imagine a really gorgeous side-scrolling Metroid game for Switch. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me like a side-scrolling Metroid game that looks good as like Pikmin. And
that would be amazing.
Done. Like, whatever you want. I'll buy the system for that. If I wasn't already probably going to buy the system for Zelda.
Yeah. Well, look, Nintendo wouldn't celebrate it, but we did. So, happy anniversary, Metroid and Samus.
I will gladly go back and play the old 2Ds again before the year is out.
All right, so let's move on. So, poking around, looking at sales figures, and found an article that updated the hardware sales chart for the Xbox One in Japan. You already looked at the sheet. I was going to ask you to guess how many you thought.
You sent me the rundown. I know.
That's right. I forgot I put the figure in the rundown. My apologies. 70,000 Xbox Ones have been sold in Japan.
Not tops.
Total. Not in the last year. Since the thing launched in Japan, 70,000. Matt, why are they still in that territory?
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense to you at all?
You gotta, somehow?
Why?
Because that's where gaming, there's still that perception that that's where gaming comes from.
Look.
Even though it started in Cupertino?
Xbox 360, I get it, because they had that big initiative where they had worked with all these partners in Japan. There's all these JRPGs, not all these, but a few JRPGs like Blue Dragon that they had commissioned to get to hopefully get
stuff.
To get like the Japanese on board with the console. This time they didn't even try. I don't even know. There's no Japanese exclusives for Xbox One.
It was scale-bound eventually. But
if it ever comes out, I'm really starting to wonder.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the only one I can think of, though.
Yeah,
there's something buried in Xbox like Live online only that I don't remember.
But I just can't fathom why. And look, they have a whole team of people in Japan. I mean, they have Xbox of Japan with a building full of people who are working on this. I don't know if I can think of a branch of a platform holder that has been a bigger failure than Xbox Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. 70,000 consoles. I don't know. I just was completely blown away by that figure. I mean, I don't know what the Xbox 360 ended up doing in Japan. I mean, we're looking at this video. Here's like half of the install base of the Xbox One in Japan. It's like...
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, do you give up?
Yes, you give up. There's no reason to be there whatsoever. I mean, if their relationship in Japan got them scale-bound and nothing else, it's not worth it.
Still not really worth it.
No. I mean, no, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft is generally a really smart company. That, I mean, okay, it has blown some money here and there, but generally it cuts its losses. Like, it's not so prideful that when it gets to the point where it's obviously not working, it won't cut its losses and get rid of something. And for whatever reason, it's decided to persist with Japan, and I have no idea why.
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe you don't want to let down those few fans you have over there, but as a Sega fan, I remember what that was like.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it doesn't really cost them anything to be there. And, is it not a loss to them in the end if they plan for that kind of level of sales? I don't know.
I mean, the crazy thing too is when you go to Japan, it's not like the Xbox is like shoved over in the corner like
they're there. They're
like the
they're
GameCube
right there.
used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, in the GameCube era, you go to Japan and like you would find an end cap with GameCube stuff, and that was it. Like,
yeah,
it had.
It's in
no
an end cap,
visibility
like
retail.
upstairs next to the porn section or something.
Like it had no visibility whatsoever. But I would go there and like Xbox 360 would have a section almost as big as PlayStation 3. And Xbox One at its launch also had plenty of retail space, plenty of floor space, shelf space.
Which had to be purchased for,
I'm
because
sure
there's no way it was worth the store's own time to put that much shelf space towards it.
It just seems like to me Microsoft is blowing copious amounts of money on something that's never worked and is never going to work. I mean,
and Sony's having enough trouble as it is.
Right. I mean, even Sony is
thing.
having problems. It's like, maybe that's why Microsoft sticks with it. Maybe they feel emboldened by the fact that PlayStation 4 is not doing all that much better.
Yeah, but like, it's not because of which console is better. It's because of like, mobile is king there.
Yeah.
And, to a degree, mobile's big here too, makes tons of money, but it's not like to the exclusion of other games. And I think it seems like it really is that over there, unless you're Monster Hunter.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think they. I mean, I wonder how much they would lose in terms of like business. They've already got a presence over there because Windows machines are a thing in Japan anyway. It may just simply not be that big a deal to them to have a minor Xbox One presence there. Like as long as they've got their Japan headquarters there, you might as well distribute your system.
Xbox One S is launching there.
Yeah. Clearly, they see they see something there.
I mean, do they think the One S is going to turn the tide? Like,
no, I think it's just like maybe it's just better to have a tiny sort of inconsequential presence there rather than explain why you decided to leave.
I don't think they'd have to explain why they left. I don't think anybody would be like, why did they do that?
I think it's probably for some kind of business relationship thing. Like that's my only assumption I can make is that that they still want Japanese development content on there in some way or in some level or maybe more as they go forward, and it's harder to get Japanese developers to make something for a system that isn't in their country. So maybe that's the plan. Is like. Not, obviously they're not going to completely refocus on having Japanese content on their system, but they don't want to lose it completely, and they might lose it completely if, Japanese developers can't see their own games on the shelves in the store next to their house. That's the only thing that's my only theory, and I have no proof of that or real evidence to think so. But that would be my only thing. Would be it's hard to get people to work really hard on something that isn't in their country, unless you're exploiting workers in China or something, I guess.
I just realized something I don't know the answer to. Where is Dead Rising 4 being developed? Is that Japan or the U.S.?
I don't know. I would guess Japan. That's Capcom. So I think it's one of their Japanese studios.
I mean, Capcom has commissioned Western development
Yeah, but
studios.
I haven't heard anything about a Western studio doing Dead Rising 4, and I feel like Dead Rising is traditionally a Japanese development because a lot of it. There's some caricatures in that series that probably wouldn't have made it in a Western developed game. So
I mean, look, that is an exclusive that Microsoft has.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's probably not the result of being
but,
in Japan.
I mean, they have a long relationship with that series. Dead Rising 3 was a launch title.
Yeah.
Not one I particularly liked very much.
Either.
But it was. I mean, it was still an exclusive for a while until it went to PC, and clearly Microsoft didn't care if something goes to PC. Maybe that tiny little effort of keeping the Xbox existent in Japan is worth it to maintain the relationships with those developers. That's the only thing I could think. Because clearly, I can't imagine even the most optimistic Microsoft executive thinks is like, it's going to be this month, that we break through the elusive 100,000 barrier.
I wonder if they'll throw a party when they crack 100K.
I just picture some lone Xbox exec seeing the 100K thing come through in the email and just pulling out one of those little horn things, throwing it in the garbage.
I don't know. I guess it'll just have to remain a mystery. I'm looking in chat here. I don't see anybody coming up with any ideas either. So,
they're saying Capcom Vancouver is doing.
So it is done in the West End. I actually kind of thought. I think that's why I had that question in my mind. So, yeah, I don't know. All right, let's move on. So, more discouraging news that I got today. Not that I was all bent out of shape over the Xbox One only selling 70,000 units in Japan, but I was discouraged by this wholeheartedly. GameSpot got a chance to go check out The Last Guardian again. And when it sat down for the demo, they were told by Sony that this is pretty far into the game. And, be patient, because we know you've played this before at E3, but there may be some stuff in here you're not clear on. Just ask us and we'll help you and get you through it. Basically saying don't get discouraged and go say this game sucks. You know how to read between the lines when you work in the press long enough. And
we're about to throw you into a section of the game where if you normally played it, you would have been taught how to do a bunch of shit,
right?
And you have not been taught, so the game's gonna expect you to know some things you don't know.
That's the exact spiel that they gave GameSpot. So they go into play and they're like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be mind blowing. We're gonna see all this stuff we've never seen before. And it was no different than the beginning of the game that everyone played at E3.
It's just the eco-style puzzles with the cat bird.
No new mechanics. They said they had no problem playing it. That they just jumped right in and went after it. And so there's two things here. One, there's two options, basically. One, the game never changes. And you just are doing the same thing throughout.
Just like war.
Yeah. Or two, the game is really freaking short. Which do you think is more likely?
I think it's both.
Really?
Yes. I think this thing's 4 hours long, and we've seen everything it has to show us.
4 hours, you think?
I think it's short. I think it's 4 to 5 hours.
I don't know if I could think of anything more devastating in video games, because something devastating happened this week that was far more devastating than a video game could ever be. But I don't think I could think of anything more devastating in video games than if The Last Guardian were only 4 hours long.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt, think about how long this game has been in development.
I think they've just been starting over a lot. I don't think it's been a constant development on one game. I think they've probably started this thing over 2 or 3 times.
Really?
And I think, yeah. I mean, I don't have any evidence of this. I'm not giving you some kind of sidelong insider information. But if I sit down to play this game and it's basically Eco with a giant monster next to me for 4 hours, I am going to be disappointed, but I'm not going to be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised by anything with this game at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if it's terrible.
I mean, I hope I'm wrong and it turns out to be a full 12-hour odyssey, which eventually you leave this castle area and you're out in open areas like Shadow of the Colossus and you have to coach the catbird to fight other giant monsters in a Godzilla battle kind of thing, and the catbird grows and becomes a full griffin, and I hope things get amazing and awesome, but I just don't think that's what's going to happen. I think the whole game is escaping from these ruins, and that's going to
get out. That's
it's going to be like Eco. Eco's about that length.
It is.
It's the same. I think it's the same premise essentially, except they've added in a giant monster because that was in Shadow of the Colossus. I just don't feel like there's anything more to this, and I don't know if there were. I feel like they would have shown it by now. And the only thing that keeps hope alive for me in that regard is Team Eco is weird and private enough that I could see them holding some big surprises back. But that's also possibly just wishful thinking. I am super ready. I hope not. I mean, I have the Super Collector's Statue Edition ordered. Shadow of the Colossus is my favorite game of all time, no bar none. Period. I have played it 7 or 8 times, straight through to completion. When I mean to completion, I mean 100%. I deleted the save, started over on normal, did all the time attack stuff, played it on hard, did all the hard time attack stuff. I play that game to death every single time. I love it, and like, I want to think the best of this game, and I just feel like it's not going to be that. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm just, like, pessimistic for no good reason because it's been so long. But at this point, it's a horse race between this game and Final Fantasy 15 to be the most disappointing decade-long developed thing coming out this year.
No matter how bad Final Fantasy is, it could never be more disappointing than if The Last Guardian were bad.
Maybe for
me personally.
To us, yes. To certain other people that I've encountered, talked to, and seen, there's a lot riding on Final Fantasy 15 for some of these folks, and I think they are going to be heartbroken. But I hope again that I'm wrong. There's for some people, Final Fantasy is their Shadow of the Colossus.
But I mean, it's
it is for me.
Did they play the last few Final Fantasy games?
Yeah, but that's the thing is, like, you always have the hope that it's going to turn it around. Like maybe even if you didn't like Final Fantasy changes so much, game to game, that there's always the hope that the next one's going to reinvent it and get it right. And Team Ico does the same thing. Everything's a little, each game has been different. They're not making the same thing over and over again, outside of a certain aesthetic style. But like, Last Guardian really looks like the same thing again if you've played Ico before.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever heard somebody say that their favorite game of all time is one of the last few Final Fantasy games?
Yes.
Really?
I've seen a couple people say their favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy X.
Really?
Yeah. Final Fantasy has fans. They're all a lot younger
than us. I know that,
us.
but...
Well, they're all a lot younger than us, but 7, 8, 9, 10, and 13 I've seen. Not 13. 13's not very often, but I've seen all of those named as favorite games.
Up to 9, I could see somebody saying that. But to me, at 10, that's where it kind of jumped the shark. And
same for me. 10's the first Final Fantasy game I didn't finish. I just walked away from it eventually. But there's people that think it's the best one, and it's one of their favorite games ever.
Wow.
Same with 13. There's people who love 13. Japan loves 13. Japan loves Lightning. That's why Lightning didn't go away for 10 frickin' years.
Yeah, there's some people who are friends with me on Facebook that have, like, Lightning as, like, their avatar, and, like...
Like, yeah, I mean, it ain't me, but it's what they love.
The point I was getting at is that, you just said that Shadow of the Colossus is your favorite game of all time. You're not the first person I've heard say that. I've heard that from a lot of people. And so, to me, I feel like the average person would be more disappointed if The Last Guardian ends up not being up to expectations.
I don't think the average person even knows what the Last Guardian is yet. Like,
You're right.
I mean, there are billboards. I mean, I think it might sell pretty well because Sony is putting real marketing muscle behind this thing.
Well, it might sell well because there's no other first-party exclusive for Q4.
But I think you're going to start seeing ads for this on football, and that's often.
I don't know if that's the right demographic.
Oh, I don't know. Like, it looks cool enough, and like you think, and one of the brilliant things about it is I think. I don't know for sure, but I'm 98% sure that the animal that the creature is based on is a cat. But a lot of people look at it and think it's a dog. So basically...
It's a cog.
It's a cog. It's a cog bird. But like, if you... Like, the bond between a boy and his dog is something that speaks to even the manliest of men.
Yeah.
And I think if you run this and emphasize sort of the boy and his animal thing for like the NFL crowd, they'll hug the dog a little tighter.
How do you market this game in the U.S.?
I guess I think you market it like kind of like how you did Uncharted, where it's a movie. You market it like a movie, like an experience, and you really push the cinematic angle because the gameplay doesn't seem to be anything particularly compelling for a casual audience.
You do realize that we are 3 weeks away from playing The Last Guardian.
Yeah.
3 weeks. After all this wait. 3 weeks, people are
I saw the photo of Jeff Keighley with the first copy of it. It exists.
Yeah, I saw it on
real.
Twitter or something.
Yeah.
And there's actually a disc inside the case or whatever. So it's coming, people. The wait isn't over. I'm staying optimistic. Like, I've waited all this time. I'm not going to go gloom and doom now.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
It was discouraging.
That's my motto for 2016.
It was discouraging to see that report from GameSpot, but I'm keeping my chin up and I'm staying hopeful. So we'll see. It'll all come out in the wash in a very short amount
And also,
of time.
let's not forget, I feel like, I've played enough video games that if I sat down at that event, I would also have the same experience where I'm just like, yeah, I understand what you want me to do here. This is, the language of kind of action puzzle games is not a complex one for the most part.
Yeah.
And if it does become too complex, you've made it wrong. So I wouldn't expect that from Team Ico. And also, let's not forget, you and I have been to a lot of game press events, and the people who go to those events are not always the best game players in the world.
That's true.
We've all been in the multiplayer competitions. We've all certainly I've been to some of the fighting game launches where I had to explain to people who've been doing this for 10, 15 years what the block button does. And they might just be, their PR might just be, intentionally underestimating the abilities of the people that were at this thing to make sure. Yeah. And if these, the guys we know, the guys that go from GameSpot are going to be competent. That they might not have been talking to them.
Yeah,
is what
true.
I'm saying. And because again, one of the ways you would be familiar with this game in terms of how it plays and the little nuances of that is if you were able to watch those demos at E3 and understand what you were seeing, why you were seeing it, and how they translated into what you'd have to do on a controller. And that takes a certain level of experience, and maybe Sony didn't want to assume that everybody had that.
Well,
especially if they had YouTube influencers there.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the last time we're going to talk about The Last Guardian on this show until it comes out. It's
unless something horrible happens between now and then.
They cancel it or it's delayed. It feels good to be able to say, this is the last time I'm talking about The Last Guardian on a podcast. I've been doing this now for 10 years.
Preview-wise,
Yeah, talking about this game for 10 years on podcasts.
Because one way or the other, we're going to be either talking about it, we're going to talk about it when it comes out, and we're going to talk about it hopefully either for Game of the Year or most disappointing thing ever. So
I'm still really excited for it. I'm really pumped.
I'm excited.
Look, it's still completely different from anything else coming out the rest of this year.
I mean, having gone through, Titanfall, Battlefield 1, and Infinite Warfare over the last few weeks, I'm ready for something that isn't shooting me.
Yeah, exactly, man. I need some valleys from these peaks.
I need some third-person action, and I need it now.
Well, just got this today, Sifters.
Yeah, well, that's not going to help.
Yeah, Dishonored 2. I don't know.
First-person slasher sneaker.
Dishonored has some quiet moments to it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it depends on how you play it.
I mean, it's not going to feel like playing Titanfall 2, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'll start digging into this tonight. Pretty excited about that. Got it the day before it comes out, just like Bethesda said.
And
I guess you can't call Bethesda a liar.
I'm a little more worried, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about a zombie video game franchise that is like a zombie. Mm-hmm. So the studio that created Evolve, which obviously has been going through some tough times lately, with 2K basically killing their game off. Out of the blue, one of its developers this week said, hey, you know what I got? I have a whole brand new story for Left 4 Dead. How long has it been since Left 4 Dead came out? 8 years?
Yeah, roughly, yeah, about that.
I'll always remember Left 4 Dead because it was one of the first cooperative games that everybody at G4 played together. Mm-hmm. I met a lot of when we moved from Tech TV down to LA, and we were kind of mashed together, the Tech TV folks with the G4 folks. We'd always talk about playing games together. And
it must have been earlier then, because we moved to the new building in 2007. I think you went to Game Trailers in
What year did Left 4 Dead come out?
Was it 2005-ish?
I think it was.
No, that was when 360 came out. It might have been 2006.
6. Yeah, and I guess I did leave in early 2006. Maybe I was playing it with you guys once I had gone to GT.
Might have been.
You know what? Maybe what it was that was the game that I played with you guys after I left, and I really loved it because it was a way for me to stay in contact with you guys after I had left and gone to work somewhere else.
That sounds right. Yeah.
That was hard for me leaving G4 to go.
I played this game with a lot of people. This was a phenomenon at the time.
I remember Abby was really good at this game.
Yep. Abby was a very good Zoe.
Yeah, I remember we'd play with her, and I'd just sit back, I just protect her.
Well, I played a lot of co-op with Abby. The basic theory is let her run.
2008, people are saying in the chat.
2008? That seems much later than I thought.
Me too. The first Left 4 Dead, 2008. Wow.
But she charges in and you cover her. That's
pretty much
how that works.
When we were shooting Pactor Factor this week, he was talking about how when he plays cooperative games, he just finds the best player on the team, and then he just protects the best player on the team. It's I just follow him around, and I wait for enemies to attack him, and I pick off the enemies that are trying to attack him. And that's how I win at competitive games, basically, or finish competitive games. But have you ever heard of a game that 8 years after it came out? Actually, 8 years after it came out. So actually, I did have the date right at the beginning. I said 8 years from now, which was put it at 2008. So I can't think of another game where a whole new chapter of it is released 8 years after it came out.
No, I mean like user content, but not
Right.
like an official
Not like
release.
officially from the developers who made the game. And why'd they wait so long?
I don't know.
It's totally... Maybe this is
This is out of Valve or Turtle Rock?
Turtle Rock. I'm just
Who
wondering...
knows what happens in the halls of those places?
It's
you
really
know?
crazy, dude. Yeah, but like I said, it's like it's a zombie. It like came back from the dead and to release this new chapter. I've not played it yet, actually. I haven't had time because there's all these games coming out that I have to play now. But I was really excited to hear about that. I'm a big fan of Left 4 Dead. I like the first Left 4 Dead a lot more than Left 4 Dead 2.
Same.
I don't know if that's a universal opinion or not, but I know personally I enjoyed... I mean, that's... As long as the first game in a franchise gets close to nailing it, I think that's kind of a common theme.
Well, I think too, and this is a rarity, but for 2, I feel like I just needed a map pack.
Yeah.
And like, adding the new special infected and kind of changing things up in places. Like, I just thought it kind of like complicated things for no reason.
Yeah.
I really just wanted more Left 4 Dead 1.
Pretty
I
much, yeah.
I didn't need you to evolve it any
Just
further.
give me some new creatures, some new maps.
And I think in some places, and some of
Well, if it came out today, there'd be a season pass with like 4 installments for $50, and
you'd have to pay for each type of zombie.
Oh yeah, exactly. You have to pay for all the weapons.
There'd be no campaign.
Nope. It's funny to look back and see how the industry has changed so much in a short period of time. I mean, the DLC thing is just like out of control at this point.
And it's funny how, again, like in I guess in sort of shades of Overwatch, they did such a good job of creating, memorable characters in a multiplayer-only game. But like the one-off dialogue exchanges and reaction. I mean, I did like the dumb hick guy in 2.
Yeah.
I mean, he was really. I don't remember what his name was.
I'm surprised there haven't been more clones of this game.
I think it's really hard to make that game.
Really?
I think, make it well. Yeah, I think that's one of the. I mean, there's been sort of similar things I've noticed, like on in the early access stuff on Steam and stuff. But I don't think anybody trusts anyone but these guys to make this game.
Because it kind of cheats a little bit, because you have like the safe houses that you go into, and then it can load everything up, and it's not like this big open world game that you have to manage all this data and all this stuff that's going on everywhere. It's like,
but the way the director works in that, like the way it really like manages the game experience, like that can't be easy. Like that's kind of the heart of Left 4 Dead in terms of the gameplay. And you can, early on I was skeptical about it. I'm like, okay, the director, it's the emotion engine part 2 kind of thing. But like, eventually, like when we'd play those maps over and over and over, and like we started, my little group, we started experimenting. What happens if we do this? And like we realized that like if we did too well up to this, because we were trying to do like the achievements where like some of the stuff where it's like no one goes down through the whole thing on hard, like all through all 4 maps, and we would learn that like, if you do too well, they start sending worse and worse stuff against you, and like whereas
so you're like fighting against the algorithm in some ways.
Like by the and we're like I don't remember which map it was, but it was one like near like kind of the 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the game, and we kept getting ruined on it because we would do really well through the first part, but because we did so well, the game would send like an extra tank after us.
Oh, interesting.
And like it would be like, oh, you're doing so good. Here's some more shit to kill you, and like it became. I mean, I've been through a lot of achievement farming with that group for, we played together for 15 years almost. And like, that is, I think, the closest we have ever gotten to all just saying, fuck all of you people, and we're not playing together anymore. I mean, the anger and the frustration and like just the fact that like, you couldn't get mad at someone because the tank caught him, but like...
Now, that's cooperative gaming in a nutshell, though.
But it's like that director was so good at countering the way we tried to get through stuff that it became like fighting an entity, and it was real. I mean, in retrospect, it was pretty awesome. At the time, it was infuriating.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's probably a pretty tough thing to get right, and Left 4 Dead really got it right.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
So I'll go back. I mean, the thing about the new episode is like I don't have anyone from the old days to really play with.
I don't even know if I still have it. Like, it may have gotten stolen out of here.
I have it on PC. I would have to dig out my old 360 copy, I guess, to play it again that way. But
I think that actually was one of the games that was stacked up
I remember
back here.
seeing it on the stack. So
yeah, I think I got
that's
robbed
gone.
and I took it. So, bastards.
It's free on Steam, or what I think, or was.
Yeah.
You should be able to get it on PC pretty easy.
Yeah, it may get a little revival here.
Yeah.
Like, now that there's new content to play through, and I think what will happen is people will go back to play that new content, and they'll get sucked into playing the whole game again. because it's that good and it's that much fun. And still to this day, it's unique. And that is one thing I guess you got to hand to Turtle Rock. Like, say what you want about Evolve, but it's unique and it's different. Left 4 Dead, still at this point, no one's really replicated it or managed to do it better for sure. So I'm worried about that studio, though.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
They haven't announced anything else that they're working on.
They've got a lot of good ideas, though, and I could see them kind of going back to Valve, and maybe Valve could give them something to do.
Hopefully 2K subsidized.
I would love to see them go back to that old idea they had for it was a canceled game, but it was called The Crossing. And it was a shooter.
I remember it, yeah.
And all the enemies were played by players.
Yep.
Like it was like you were playing the campaign, but other players would join your game and be the enemies. So you were never fighting against a computer-controlled AI. It was always, and they had like almost no health.
It had to be so brutal, though.
But they had almost no health or whatever. You know, it was very easy to kill the NPC enemies basically,
right.
But they were PC enemies. But what a cool idea!
It is a cool idea. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, Evolve was a cool idea. In practice, it just wasn't as fun as everyone thought it was going to be.
Right.
When I first heard the idea of Evolve, I was like, holy crap!
But the Crossing I thought was interesting because it's like you're really riding that ragged line between like competitive play and trolling. You know, like, it's just like griefing as part of the game almost.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that be real? That would be really interesting. Just to, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't like it. But I would be definitely interested to try it.
Yep.
So maybe they could go back to that concept and give it another shot.
We'll see. Let's move on. Let's talk about more sales. Except this time it's for a franchise that usually has no problem with selling copies. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, its first week in the UK, sold half of what Black Ops 3 did its first week in the UK. Matt, is this nothing, or is it something?
I don't know. Does it include digital?
No. But it didn't include digital back then either.
Well, I think there's a big shift to digital.
It's the same metric.
Right.
It's from the same source, and it's measuring the same thing. So it's a legitimate 50% less in the first week.
I just think, we need to know digital until we know what that means. Do I think 50% of the people that were buying physical copies have suddenly switched over to digital? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I think a chunk of that is that. And then
I would say a max of 10%.
I think it's more than that.
Really?
Yeah. I think you're underestimating the digital sales at this point. Same
Really?
with your worry over the GameStop stuff. I think that just means people aren't going to GameStop anymore. They're going. You can go anywhere to get stuff now. You can go to you can get stuff digitally online, or if a game comes out that I want a physical copy of, I get it through Amazon because I get 20% off from Amazon Prime. And if I really want something that's on a shelf just because I didn't pre-order or whatever, I'm just going to go to Best Buy or Target. Like, I'm not going to go to GameStop. Like I think people, they're struggling in part because there's no reason to go there anymore unless you're trading something in.
When I got to my PlayStation VR, it was the first time I had been there since I pre-ordered PlayStation VR, and before that, I hadn't been there in like 5 years.
GameStop, I think the first time I will set foot in one for a long time is going to be for Last Guardian because I pre-ordered the collector's edition of that there because Amazon sold out like in a split second.
Yeah.
So they're useful for that, but that's about all.
That's half of their business now is selling just tchotchkes and like video game swag and clothes.
The one in West Hollywood has been fascinating to watch. This, they had a little shelf of like DC figures and stuff, and that's grown to become almost a third of the store now.
Yeah,
that's where their money is. But
there's still something to this. We're kind of getting off on a tangent here, talking about digital versus.
But the 50% drop, my question on that is sort of like. There's been backlash against this game because of that's how you had to buy the game to get Modern Warfare Remastered. Is that enough? Do people, is Black Ops 3, I don't need another game this year? I don't know. Maybe that all combines to add up to 50% of, lower physical retail sales. It's hard to believe that people would look at this thing and not be interested, but at the same time, I haven't been interested for 4 years, and now I am. So maybe it's just not appealing to the same people. Well, I said last week, there's people I know who like Call of Duty, but they aren't going in for Infinite Warfare because they say it doesn't scratch the breach and clear itch.
Yeah.
It's not the same kind of thing.
Honestly, I think what is going to work against it, and I think this is a part of what happened the first weekend in the UK, is that the multiplayer is just like Black Ops 3. And so you don't feel like you're getting this new experience. It feels like they're asking you for $60 to play a 5 or 6 hour campaign and then a bunch of maps. Because it does play exactly like Black Ops 3. And it's been to my detriment because I hardly played Black Ops 3. And you can see it online because the people who are playing online have now been playing this same multiplayer already for a year. So you can tell, like, these people are just masters at the Black Ops 3 multiplayer, and they're just jumping right in, and I guess for them it's great, but if for somebody who hasn't played Black Ops 3 all that much online, it's tough. Like, they're so freaking good. I'm just getting annihilated online. I've never got destroyed like this in a Call of Duty game, and I think it's because we're basically looking at 2 years in a row of the exact same multiplayer component. The exact same traversal, speed, everything about it is just like Black Ops 3. And so you have all these people who've been playing it for a year, they just jumped right in and just started kicking ass, and they're kicking my ass. Let me tell you, man. Like,
which is funny because like you look at the single player and it's like it's barely recognizable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the
It's
game...
weird they didn't incorporate more of that into the multi.
The whole game doesn't fit together as a whole at all. Like, the zombies mode is this weird, like, 80s, like, B-movie thing. Like, and then you have, like, Star Wars in the campaign, or maybe it's closer to, like, Battlestar Galactica or whatever, but it's like this space-bound sci-fi movie thing. And then you have, like, this campy, like, zombies mode from, like, the 80s. And then you have multiplayer from Black Ops 3. It's like there's no theme or connecting tissue with any of the three modes. It feels like they're three separate games just put on one disc. And it's the first time I've ever really felt that way about a Call of Duty.
But you can play as a robot. It's totally different.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never seen Call of Duty drop that much in 1 year from sales. And I'm just really starting to wonder.
Also, it's just UK. I mean, is the UK that much of a barometer for the rest of the world in terms of Call of Duty sales?
Well, it's not even about talking about sales anywhere else. You're just looking at, it's 50% down from the UK last year. So you're working with the same variable there.
Right. But what I'm saying is that doesn't necessarily tell us anything about America's sales.
No, it doesn't. But it's certainly sort of a tipping the hand to a theme, maybe.
Somewhat. I mean, I don't know much about how the British economy is doing right now. Maybe people aren't buying luxury goods so much right now. You know, it could be a combination of a whole bunch of stuff. It's a big drop, though.
That's huge.
I mean,
huge.
And the thing is, like, I just don't see anything about this particular installment of this game that warrants that kind of a drop. So it makes me think that there must be something else happening, or something else is happening. You know.
Somebody in the chat just said, "I don't know what he's talking about. He was slaying." I don't know what you're talking about. I was definitely not doing any slaying in Infinite Warfare multiplayer. I was the slayed. Let me tell you. I got slayed. I get slayed.
Were you streaming it?
No, but I think, people...
Is he talking about the footage here? Because that was not you.
Oh. That was a multiplayer. That was campaign footage.
I don't know what...
People on Sifted play with me all the time, yeah. Like, they'll just join my game, whatever I'm playing. Like, they'll see that I'm playing, and they'll jump in. And, like, sometimes I don't even know that, like, you guys are there. Until, like, they leave... And then they'll send me a message like, "Was great playing with you." And I'm like, I didn't even know we were playing together. Here's a tip, Sifters. If you come in and play with me, like, send me the message while we're playing so I know you're there, and we'll, like, team up. In fact, I could use some help in Infinite Warfare. I'm just getting destroyed. So,
Cheater Hater has an interesting question. How long do you think it'll take for COD to take a year off like Assassin's Creed did this year?
A long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, if it ends up selling half of what it did last year... They'll certainly reevaluate. I mean...
We're never getting something that interesting again, that's for sure.
I mean, but here's the thing. These games are already on the... This is the first Call of Duty that was on the 3-year cycle. This is the first one. And they're going to be on the 3-year cycle from now on.
They're rotating through the 3 different developers.
Exactly. This is the first one where they took 3 years to develop.
So next year is Sledgehammer?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, Sledgehammer will be back, which I'm totally cool with because I really loved their last Call of Duty.
Their last one was Advanced Warfare.
Right, with all the crazy traversal and the jetpacks, and I hope that they come back and expand on that, because I loved it. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe people have always been wondering, like, when is the Call of Duty bubble going to pop, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, when is that going to happen? And I'm wondering if finally it has happened.
But why? What would cause that?
I mean,
now?
I think I tried to explain it there a little bit, that people just feel like it's the same damn game they just bought last year.
But it's been that for a long time, I think. And,
yeah, but you're also getting fatigue at this point.
But people don't know that until they play it. So
how
does that
reading reviews and all that type of stuff. I mean, every review for this game says it's Black Ops 3 multiplayer.
Yeah, but that stuff was pre-ordered long before anybody read a review. I mean, this series has been review-proof for years.
Does anybody need to pre-order Call of Duty?
Well, because that's how you get your XP or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, there's all that extra
crap that I don't pay attention to. Yeah. Maybe they thought that this multiplayer trailer was me playing. That's probably what it was. This is a pre-cut trailer from Activision, folks. This is not me playing. So, I don't know. I thought it pretty curious that it would drop that much. I can't remember a Call of Duty.
It is curious, but I just don't have a real solid theory why it would drop that far, unless you're really talking about a whole bunch of different factors adding up to 50%, basically. Because I can't think that it dropped 50% just because everybody looked at this and said, "Screw this game, I don't want to play it." But maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Because for the first time since Ghost, I looked at a Call of Duty game and said, "Wow, I really want to play that." So maybe I'm just the opposite of what the core audience wants.
But the thing is that people buy this game for the multiplayer. Most people do not buy it for the campaign. Mm-hmm. And you're right. The campaign does look awesome. It's been marketed very well, and it looks completely different and interesting, and it's like it has a twist and different angles. But ultimately, when you pay that $60, you're counting on playing that multiplayer for the next 3 months or a year in a lot of cases for people that buy this game. And if you're looking at it like, hey, it's $60 and I'm getting 10 new maps, but the gameplay is basically the same, and someone who's been playing this game already for how many years? I mean, you can look at the election. For the human condition, there's a breaking point where people get tired of the same old thing, and eventually, people revolt. And I'm wondering if this is sort of that revolt, or at least the first signs of the revolt.
I don't know. I need to see American sales before I believe anything like that.
Yeah. Look, I don't think it's going to bomb in America. No matter what, it's going to sell 10 million copies probably. But it usually sells more than that. So
I just feel like we're looking at one facet of the jewel here. Yeah. It doesn't tell me anything concrete. It's certainly weird though.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. I mean,
has Activision done their usual hey, we sold a oblivious number of copies or whatever? Because if they not doing that is unusual.
They've not done that. They've not sent out a press release saying we sold. You're right. That's a good point. Usually, by now, we would have got that press release that says sold.
Breaking whatever,
entertainment records for first 3 days. And if you noticed, the last couple, every time they did those, the last couple times, it would be over the first 5 days, over the first 6 days. So maybe tomorrow we get one that's over the first
2 weeks in entertainment disc-based history with future guns.
Right. Yeah. They're starting to, they're grasping at straws a little bit at this point. But no, they've not put out any kind of a press release with their sales.
So do you think maybe would it shock you or surprise you that the series peaks with Black Ops 3?
It would not surprise. It wouldn't have surprised me if it happened 3 games ago. I mean, we've been playing these games for so long, and I mean,
a lot of people thought Ghosts was kind of the bubble popping, and that turned out to be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, people came back, but why they came back was because they finally changed the game. That's when they finally changed the traversal all up. First, Sledgehammer did it, and then with Treyarch, they kind of pulled it back a little bit from what Sledgehammer did, but it still was new. You still had wall running and double jumping and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see when the MPD report rolls around. We should get that.
Maybe people are waiting for Christmas.
Maybe.
People
don't wait for anything.
They bought Battlefield 1, and now they're waiting for Christmas for Infinite Warfare.
And it doesn't work that way with
We're going to kill people in space to celebrate the birth of Jesus. That's how we do it.
All right, let's move along. Next, we're going to talk about the Metro franchise. So, yesterday, it leaked.
I knew you would put writing on the Metro as the lower third for this.
Why do you think I use that, though?
Because you like the Go-Go's.
It's not the Go-Go's, though.
Bangles.
It's not the Bangles, either.
One of those. One of those 80s girl groups.
I actually don't remember the name of the band, but they're more underground than the Bangles or the Go-Go's. Somebody in chat knows.
Blondie?
No. It's not Human League.
It's not
It's a group like that. It's like an electro group from the 80s. They were like alternative.
Berlin?
Yeah, it's Berlin. Okay. Yeah. Only hit they ever had. Berlin was like underground.
Berlin had another hit.
Take My Breath Away.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Top Gun, son. What the
I
hell?
forgot about that. That was like their one commercial song that they made or whatever back in the day. But no, that's not why. So let me tell the story. So yesterday, it leaks out that a new Metro game is coming next year. And I was pretty excited about that. We'll talk about Metro in a second. And then today, Deep Silver comes out and says, oh, no. The new Metro's not coming out this year, or next year. But basically said it is coming out. Mm-hmm. And so, to go to talk about the graphic, I'm thinking about Deep Silver, and I'm like, you kind of needed that game next year. Because they have nothing.
Yeah.
They had nothing this year. Now they have nothing next year. So, thus...
Now that because Dead Island 2 got killed.
Right. So, Deep Silver's prospects are riding on...
The Metro. Oh.
See, much more clever than you thought.
Yeah.
Or maybe I thought it was more, maybe I thought it was more clever than it actually was. What are your feelings on the Metro franchise?
I like it. It's I played the first one when it came out, and I played the second one in the Redux package when I on Steam. They're good. They're kind of like an actiony version of Stalker in some ways. I love the.
Are they good though?
Yeah, they're not great, but they're pretty good in terms of what they're doing. And
the first one was a broken piece of crap.
It worked okay, I thought.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't hate it.
Oh man, I saw crazy stuff in that game.
I didn't
like
hate
the
it.
AI that would just go dead. Like,
oh yeah, the AI wasn't great, but like
it wasn't great.
But I like
it didn't exist.
But I like it wasn't that bad.
It was bad.
Mine.
Maybe you played it post patch or something. When it came out, and we were reviewing it.
I played it when it first came out, like for like a little while, and I think I went back to it like at the end of the year. So maybe it was fixed a little bit.
Oh man, we had a field day doing the review for that at Game Trailers, man.
I just liked how Russian
galore.
it was. Like it was just like I know it's based on I think a book series or something. It's but like I love the whole like the world is ending, like monsters are everywhere, and then like you're with this like group of Russians who live underground and go out periodically to kill these things, even though they know humanity is doomed because that's just what Russians do.
Yeah.
Like it's just like we're still alive, so we're just gonna fight until we can't fight anymore. I was like, I just loved like the utter bleakness of the world and of the attitude of the characters in it, where it's just like, well, we're just gonna keep doing this because what else we got, you know?
But that's why I'm not a fan of this franchise, and also why I'm not a fan of Stalker. And I get that some people really like them, and I get that they're atmospheric, but they're just so drab and dreary.
Oh, they're relentless in terms of how it's like, yeah, you're not going to come away from this game feeling good. Like it's a Serbian movie of shooters.
You're right. By the way, do not go and watch that movie.
Don't just like pop that in for a Thanksgiving treat just because I mentioned it. Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, I've talked about really depraved movies in the past, and that one is up tipping the scale at about 11.
I have seen anything and everything you can imagine on a screen in terms of twisted and horrible movies, and even I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I've seen some pretty big betrayals of the audience in my time in a movie theater, and that one was like,
you saw that in a movie theater?
Yeah,
oh my God.
I mean, I knew it was supposed to be like a thing when it came, when it showed up. But I have never seen so many people walk out of a movie.
I believe it.
Many of them with their hands over their mouths.
Oh, I believe it.
It was yeah. Don't.
Everyone in the chat right now.
Everyone is looking it up right now. Yeah. And the best part was at one point, Attack of the Show did a segment on it.
Really?
And some poor intern had to go through the whole thing and capture from it. And so it was.
Wait, when did that movie come out?
It was years ago. It was like This was 2011, 2012.
Okay.
It was late. Right. But I remember being in the game lab while this poor intern had to go through. She had to go through the whole thing and find these scenes they were talking about, and eventually they would, they blurred a bunch of stuff, and they did, but like, we're sitting in the game. There's like 15 people working in the game lab, capturing stuff, looking around, somebody shooting something, and a Serbian film is playing over in a corner, and I'm just like, And I'm just like, wow,
People get fired for that stuff.
somebody put the Final Fantasy standee in front of the monitor or something.
But that is a great analogy. Like, you're right. Stalker and Metro are like the Serbian film of video games. They're just like this dreary, everything's gray and brown and red. They've never resonated with me, but I know a lot of people really like them.
Also, have you ever been to Eastern Europe over there?
I have not.
Because that's what it looks like.
Oh, I know.
Even the nice, I was in the Czech Republic, and eventually we went east far enough to go to Brno. We're going to 2K Brno. We're going to see Mafia 2, and like we're driving through, and it's like and there's like here's a gray blasted heath with like a burned out warehouse, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And they're like, oh, that's from communism. We've just no one's,
that's from communism.
No one's ever cleaned it up or gotten rid of it or restored it or anything. It's just there's stuff like that everywhere here. And I'm just like, oh boy. And I think that was like 20 years ago. That was a long time ago. And it's just like there's like the wreckage of this horrible period just sort of laying there, and it's just part of life. And you just deal with it. You get used to it. And like Metro 2030 and like Metro 2033 made a lot more sense.
Yeah. You know what I've discovered is that I don't like any game where you have a constant status that's always going down. Like, I didn't like that about No Man's Sky with the cold. I don't like it in Stalker with the radiation. I didn't like it in Metroid Prime 2 where they had, like, the dark and the light areas and you had to, like, run from one bubble to the next to, like, not die. Like, I hate any game that does that, man.
You're not a survival guy?
No, I mean, I don't mind survival games, but whenever it's, like, this extreme thing that's always, like, hanging over your head, like... But you're right. Like hunger in games, I hate that crap.
For me, it depends on how it's done. But so in No Man's Sky, it doesn't really bother me. I'll tell you what I hated in that bracket of gameplay mechanics.
That bucket of games.
Majora's Mask.
Yeah, I didn't like it
the fact
either.
that a whole game was
thing.
one giant time limit. I was like, nah, I don't like this. And like, I know some people like cite that one as their favorite Zelda because of how weird and dark and twisted it is, and I appreciate that, but I ain't playing something with that time limit.
The first time I played Majora's Mask, I didn't make it more than like 2 hours through the game, and I just quit. I just was not having fun with it.
Yep.
The other part of it, too, that really sucks is like the original version of Majora's Mask on the N64, you had to play it for like 2 hours to get to the first save point.
Saving it, yeah.
Yeah. So I had started the game like 3 or 4 times, never got to the save point before I quit, and then finally went back and got to the save point and got another hour in it, and I was just like, I'm not really enjoying this. I didn't really have fun. Like, I couldn't really understand the time mechanic, and like...
I've been told that the 3DS remake has an adjusted save system that makes it less annoying.
Kind of has to for a handheld, right?
Yeah, but I haven't played it personally, so I do have it, but I haven't actually played it. Someone gave it to me for Christmas.
You know what else I got today? Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that game.
I got the metal version ordered from Amazon.
Yeah.
So I think that's the 18th.
Yep.
Coming up.
That's not enough time to get it done.
No, there's enough time to kind of get a taste, though.
Yeah, I mean, those games are huge.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those games that
you will not catch them all.
Yeah, I definitely will not. But it's also one of those games that you can play like on the couch, like with your girlfriend or your wife while they watch TV, and you can kind of pay attention to what's going on the TV. And turn-based battles are always good for that. So, what's your level of excitement over Metro's sequel on a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't know, like a 4.
Yeah,
like
that's about where I come in.
It's one of those games where I'm just like, oh, cool. I will see you when you're $4 on Steam sales.
I'm just kind of surprised they're even making another one. Like, I mean,
it depends.
They were
I could they're successful enough. I think in terms of worldwide stuff, they didn't set the world on fire, but I think they did. Deep Silver knows where it is in terms of how much it can sell. Yeah, how much it can sell, and I think they plan accordingly. Clearly, they are not spending $180 million to make these things. So I'm sure it works out for them. But like. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where if I could find it for a really good price in the launch window and nothing else is coming out, then I might try it. But it's never been, that series has never been a priority to me.
What they should do is they should just make the next Metro you can just kill Putin.
Yeah.
Seriously. It would probably sell double what it...
Like, it turns out that the whole thing was his fault.
Right.
Basically. Like,
yeah, and you hunt him down and you kill him.
He's the leader.
Yeah.
Giant mutant Putin on a... mutant Putin.
Putin on the Ritz.
A putant.
A putant.
Now we're on a list.
Yeah, you're right. Trump's already got the feelers out there looking for people talking bad about his allies. So, all right, let's move on. We're going to talk about The Division. We've talked about this game a couple times on GameFace, maybe more than a couple. As we know, like they kind of put a halt to all the updates because basically Ubisoft got to a place where it's like, look, like these updates aren't going the way we want. The game's boring to play. Neither one of us have played it in months, I'm assuming.
No,
I haven't.
I have installed it.
I installed it a long time ago, and I haven't really played it since launch, in all honesty, since ever I did the game eval for it.
Yeah, I finished it, and we all, I think they tried to do like the raid, and you can only do the daily, play the same level you've already played 4 times daily with a different difficulty level so many times until it's like, oh, and you didn't get anything you needed, so you wasted your time now. It's like, it's that Destiny thing where it's just like, you're making me do the dumb part of MMOs for no good reason, so I'm going to stop playing you. And then you announce your big DLC thing is sewers? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, so then they had the second DLC pack coming, and they basically delayed it because they're like, oh, this isn't going the way that we wanted it to.
It's not going the way I want it to either. I don't want it to go underground. Stop it.
And so basically Ubisoft is saying, we need to change this game in order for it to survive. Or AKA, in order for it to be the cash cow that we hoped that it was going to be.
So we can stall until Division 2 comes out.
Yep, and so we wait another 2 months for them to finally release a DLC. They announced the DLC this week, and it's a 24-player survival mode. How do you feel about that?
I don't.
Yeah, where you have to survive the cold.
I feel nothing.
I think I mentioned this before. Just give us boss fights. Just give us really tough boss fights. Just done. I'll come back and I'll play.
Like the hands of my theoretical player character, I am numb.
Yeah.
I don't...
You think this is the end of The Division?
The end of The Division for me.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't think I ever bought the season pass anyway, so...
I didn't either. I think I may have got it with the review code. I think if I go back, I think it just automatically downloads the updates.
I don't know. I'm sure someone will go back to our Division episode and I'll say what I did.
Yeah.
Maybe I made a mistake there.
Yeah. But this is not going to...
I hope I didn't.
This is not going to bring me back to The Division.
No. I mean, a decent expansion that explored a new part of Manhattan would bring me back, but they're not making that. They're making a damn sewer level.
Yeah, or what about there's 5 boroughs in New York.
Park or any... I mean, you've only did the bottom third of Manhattan. There's a lot more to do.
Well, they had also talked before the game came out that they were going to there was supposed to be Brooklyn proper, not just this little thing you start in.
Beginning,
literally, you're going to be able to go to Brooklyn. That has never happened. Ubisoft, has promised so much for this game that it just flat out never delivered.
No, I thought we were going to be eventually working, DLC. I thought we'd be working our way up to Harlem.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was the whole idea was to take back New York.
Yeah,
not just take back Manhattan. Wasn't that the tagline? Take back New York, or wasn't there something that they used for marketing,
or some kind of it's a jungle in there, kind of, I don't know. I think just at the very least, not doing Central Park seems like a waste because that would at least be a different kind of gameplay.
Yeah, it also give you a different environment instead of just the urban
concrete jungles.
I mean, for me, this has been one of the more disappointing games of this generation.
Yeah, I mean, I had a really good time playing it at the time of launch, but I put probably 50-something hours into it, and then I was done. It's I know everybody says
I never played it that much.
I know everybody. I got to the max level. I got the I didn't get the raid level gear, but I got it about as good gear as you're going to get at the time. Did a fair amount of Dark Zone stuff with my friends. I had my good time with it, but I didn't have a problem walking away from it at the end of that. Nothing has really popped up in terms of the new content to make me say, "Ooh, I got to experience that." It's just not there.
This part of the game isn't there.
Right.
All this pre-promotion that they put into this game, none of it showed up, dude. None of this aesthetic was in there. It was just, here's a bunch of dudes, go kill them. Now they have more hit points.
Yeah, a lot of bullet sponge problems, and it still doesn't look remember the old demos of the engine?
Yeah.
It never looked like that. It was another downgrade. Watch Dogs style downgrade, I guess.
I finished the primary campaign, went and did a little bit of Dark Zone stuff, just enough so I knew how it worked for the game eval, and I never went back to play it. I just didn't care. I don't like games where you're just shooting the same stuff over and over again, hoping to get some rare drop or to just grind levels. I just don't care about that stuff.
I think a lot of people don't care about that. I mean, that's the MMO element that I don't see any reason to bring into these shooters.
Yeah.
Just to call them MMOs, I guess.
I mean,
I don't know.
if you think back on The Division, what is like a memorable moment from that game?
We had some memorable moments, mainly in the Dark Zone, I would say. We're trying to get the gear out. And
yeah, I mean, I have moments where you're trying to extract stuff, and it's like this crazy battle, and... but I mean, like an iconic moment. Like, the only thing I can think of are, like, the flamethrower guys, the first time you meet them.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's like it was just the same thing over and over again. And now it looks like this DLC is the same thing all over again.
I mean, beyond the flamethrower stuff, that one first level with the big flamethrower boss at the end of it, most of it is kind of a white and gray blur.
Yeah.
And the dark, I mean, there was a lot of good stuff in the Dark Zone that we had, but it was kind of like the more emergent fun that I'm sure wouldn't really function now because they've changed that so much. And also, like, you know... It was also different than because we still believed at the time that like the stuff we'd get out of the Dark Zone would be worth anything.
Yeah.
You know, and that never panned out. So after a while, we stopped going to the Dark Zone because we knew we weren't going to get anything of value.
And you also knew that there were jerks in the Dark Zone who were just going to make your time miserable. Like every time I went in there, I just got griefed by people, which I know that was kind of their intent. It's like, why did you intentionally create an environment for people to grief other players?
I think because a lot of games don't let that happen, so they were kind of experimenting with the idea, like, well, what if we let that happen and make that part of the game? And to some degree, there's some nice moments where like there'd be a couple jerks in the area we were running in, and we get to a pickup part, and like another group of people would be there, and there'd kind of be that standoff where everybody's like, and it turns out, okay, we're all just here to drop off our gear. And, there were moments...
And then you got to do it, someone shoots you in the head.
Well, no, because like, we had things, right, you can only fit four packs on one airlift, and like, so we'd have to call in a second airlift, and people, we would stay to help the other guys, or people would stay, and like, eventually it'd be like, 6 of us or 7 of us on like, 2 jerks running around, and like, we would just kill them over and over, and that was satisfying.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
But in the end, it didn't really get you any further in terms of the, being able to handle the new content that I get, but it's also like you hit that point where like, I'm doing the raid to get the better gear so I can do the raid faster so I can get the better gear to do the raid to get the, it's like at a certain point once you recognize that loop, you're like, I'm just going to go play something else.
I was really excited for this game leading up to its release. It's probably one of the games I was most excited for in this generation as well. And
I was kind of I didn't care about it at all, and then I played the beta they released, and I was like, oh, I really like this. It was fun. So I played the full thing, and I had a really good time. And then that good time was over, and I have not felt the need to go back and give it another shot. And mainly because there's just nothing. There's nothing that they've shown in terms of their new content that makes me feel like it's something I haven't done already.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about BioWare. BioWare, 2 days ago, went on record is saying that a Jade Empire sequel is not out of the question.
Somebody realizes a market in China.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less in the stereotype department this time, but it's a fertile setting.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you think that's a viable franchise to bring back for a sequel after all this time?
I don't know. It's probably my least favorite BioWare game.
Really?
It didn't do anything for me.
What did you not like about it?
It was the KOTOR format, but it's not my least favorite because I did like it better than Dragon Age 1.
Yeah.
But similar to Dragon Age 1, I could see the strings basically. It was just really obviously, that kind of 3D permutation of the Infinity Engine game that like had the same sort of, you're part of this elite thing, and then the thing gets destroyed, and now you have to slowly finish your training as this thing as you move along, and there's a traitor who caused that to happen, and you have to gather your allies and friends who are all really weird and disparate, but they all want the same thing in some way or another, and now you got to go here, this part, or this one of 4 places that gives you a piece of the thing you need to get to the 5th place, and it's like, it was just really transparently the same thing I'd already played in the KOTOR games, and, the Baldur's Gates sort of had the same setup, and it was just, and I didn't find the setting particularly compelling in the sense that, like,
no, I would completely agree with that.
It didn't, in part because, like, they were kind of experimenting with their sort of real-time kung fu combat, and it just didn't work.
Well, we're seeing it right now. But, one thing you can say, though, is it is unique. Because, what other RPG focuses on, like, hand-to-hand combat in kung fu?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's a reason why there's no
Yeah,
other
I mean, it's
game
hard.
that does it.
But
Well, it's hard, and like it seems like everyone that's tried it, like Jade Empire, it didn't come out especially well.
And for me, like I do like the BioWare kind of format to some degree, but like it worked better for me in Mass Effect because it was that the sci-fi setting I'm interested in. It worked better in Star Wars because I had a lightsaber.
Yeah.
And this one, it's like a kung fu thing, and I never had a tremendous, affinity for that sort of the B movie kung fu setting until El Rey Network came on the air a couple years ago, and they play those old Shaw Brothers movies uncut and uncensored at night.
Yeah.
And I watched a ton of those, and like they're terrible, but they're great.
Yeah.
And
so bad they're good.
Yeah. So maybe I should go back and try. That again, but like it was weird things where like you hit the point where like I think the main like the traitor bad guy early on, one of the other students is voiced by the guy who did Leonardo on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's just like you just sound like Leo. It's like you just sound like Kaneda from Akira. I'm not buying you as like this sinister presence. Like you just sound like a whiny jerk. And it didn't work for me.
I think they're bluffing. I don't think that this sequel to Jade Empire will ever come out.
It seems like a weird thing to throw BioWare at this point.
I just think it's a game that could have been made when it was made, and now rationalizing the amount of investment because the cost of development has just gone through the roof.
Yeah,
Since this game was released.
You'd be leaning real hard on the Kung Fu Panda audience or something.
I mean, who do you sell this to?
I don't know.
I think that they're just giving the fans some lip service.
And it's also like a landmine of of cultural appropriation complaints and do you if you have white actors voicing Chinese characters you're in the whitewashing department now. Like I just feel like it's probably not worth the trouble it would be to do it right and to do it well and to do it non-offensively.
I mean, look, BioWare's name has a lot of cachet. There's no denying it. But even BioWare, I feel like, would have a really hard time selling this concept in 2016. And I think as time goes on, it becomes even less likely that people are going to be into the concept.
Although, to be fair, Marvel Netflix is about to sell pretty much the same concept to some degree in Iron Fist.
Really?
In April. So that's a big mystical kung fu action show. I mean, that's what it is. That's what Iron Fist is. Think Doctor Strange, except with more punching.
Interesting.
White guy goes to mystical Chinese hidden city and learns the ultimate technique and becomes the best kung fu master ever. Like, that's basically what Iron Fist is, and that's their April Netflix show. So, if that's big, it could start a resurgence in the whole, that character comes out of the 70s, kung fu fad.
I just wonder, too, if many people who are playing games today ever played Jade Empire. Because it's an old game.
Somewhat. I mean, it has been free on Origin a bunch of times. I feel like you could have probably gotten it free like a couple of times in the last few years, and maybe people played it that way.
Or have they even heard of it?
I have seen them giving it away on Origin. I have it on Origin because I got it free as part of their, it's a free game. We're giving it away today. So I'm like, okay, sure. And I think, is it on iPad?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe people play it through that way. I don't know. I mean, I don't hear people mention it much.
No.
I couldn't tell you much about it beyond that skeleton of the plot I just outlined for you. So
I enjoyed it for its time, but looking back on it now, I wouldn't want to play it again. I'm one and done with that one. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like they would probably end up having to make it so different. It's like, why even call it Jade Empire anyway?
Yeah. Like it's not like the name carries any weight, and I think people tend to kind of say that games don't have this problem, but I think Titanfall 2 had kind of maybe proves a little bit otherwise. Like slapping a 2 at the end of something when people haven't played the first one is a way to alienate people.
It is a little
more
bit.
Than just call it Jade. I mean, maybe you could do Jade Empire : subtitle.
Yeah.
And do it that way, but.
I'd be surprised if they make the sequel.
It's like they did with Dragon Age 3. Dragon Age 3 was just Dragon Age Inquisition.
Oh, you're right.
Because it doesn't look so much like you missed two parts.
Yeah. Well, also when you're talking about RPGs, it's like, it's most people think when they think of an RPG, it's going to be hard to jump into part 3 and know what the hell's going on.
Right.
If I haven't played the first 2 games. So that's a good point. Let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about a genre that used to be one of the biggest genres in the industry, snowboarding games. So
part of the even larger genre, action sports.
Action sports, which used to be huge.
Not like those traditional sports with no action.
No action, yeah. Well, remember Activision created its own imprint for its action sports games called O2, I think it was.
Yes.
And they had like wakeboarding games and surfing games.
Wakeboarding Unleashed.
And inline skating games.
That was Wakeboarding Unleashed is the one where you did the
extreme tricycling. Yeah.
Walking Unleashed.
Yeah.
I remember that caused tremendous gasping when we moved to the new building because we were under E's kind of legal supervision at that point.
Yeah.
And we wanted to it was our 1,000th episode, I think. We were going to rerun our greatest hits, and we wanted to rerun that as part of it. And apparently, back at Tech TV, it was just like,
it was a free-for-all.
It was a free-for-all in terms of music use. And so if the music was in the game, the rule was like you can use it in the review because it's editorial commentary. So you use music from the game, and the music you used was Van Halen.
Yeah. I get away with that now.
We showed, legal saw that, they're like, you can't use Van Halen under footage we shot. And we're like, well, it's already aired. They're like, what?
A million times.
So Tech TV was a TV making treehouse.
It really was.
Of just amazing proportions. No one cared. No one cared about any. So we had to change that.
Yep.
But I'll always remember that.
That was the heyday of extreme sports games. That's whenever that was like the PlayStation 2
because that's
era.
what you were making fun of. Was like we were doing a review for an extreme sports game every week at that point.
And that was the whole point I was trying to make in the review was what's next? Extreme tricycling or extreme walking? Like that's how ridiculous.
Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer. What's next?
That was how ridiculous it had gotten at that point.
Or what was Johnny Mosley's Mad Tricks?
Oh yeah, that's right. The skiing game.
What if it snowed in San Francisco?
That's right. I forgot about that. That's so freaking great, man. Johnny Mosley had a video game. Don't forget about that. That's pretty crazy. Everyone watching this is like, who the hell is Johnny Mosley right now?
And we're like, exactly.
Yeah. And back then we didn't know who the hell he was either. So
yeah.
So it went through that period where extreme sports games were freaking huge, and then they just disappeared off the face of the earth. Like Activision closed down O2. All those games went away except for Tony Hawk, and then Tony Hawk turned into this bastard child with like goofy skateboard peripherals and all this other garbage. And so now, I don't know if you realize or not, but there are 3 snowboarding games coming out in like the next 30 days. So it went from
what happened?
That's what I'm asking.
Did a bunch of guys that grew up with those games finally hit the point where they could greenlight stuff?
Maybe. They're 2 of them are indie games. And then one of them is Ubisoft's Steep.
Right. Which the game has confused us for months now.
Yeah. And some previews came out this week, which is what made me think of this. The previews were Yeah, they weren't negative. They weren't especially
Do people
positive.
really wear giraffe suits skiing these days? Is that a thing the kids do?
I don't know. I haven't watched a snowboarding video since I was 19, so I would have no idea. But is this a huge mistake? I mean, Ubisoft has obviously put a ton of money into this game.
I mean, I liked the snowboarding. If I was going to pick one of those action sports genres that I stuck with the longest, it would probably be snowboarding stuff. SSX3 is probably my favorite of those because it was just, I know everybody likes Tricky, and I do like Tricky, but I love 3 because it was just here's a mountain.
Yeah.
Go. And I loved it. And being able to start at the top and just go all the way down, it was a 20-minute ride all the way down. It was great. It was meditative. It wasn't particularly exciting most of the time, but I really enjoyed it. And so this Steep kind of looks like something I'd like to get into because it sort of seems to have that same philosophy that SSX3 did about you and the mountain. But I still can't really believe they made it.
I can't
because
either.
I can't imagine there's that many people like me out there who are interested in that.
The other thing, too, is that any game that has multiple disciplines in the same game,
right,
it always sucks.
Right, because I'm looking at the snowboarding here, but there's also the skiing and the wingsuiting.
Right.
Which is
the wingsuiting, by the way.
One of those in there is going to get the short end of the stick at the very least.
I already saw the wingsuit stuff, and it just seems completely frivolous and pointless. You basically are just flying through slaloms in the air, these.
Kill him. Hit him in the head with the board.
I think what the problem was with this genre in general, the action sports genre, is that they got to a certain place and there was just nothing else they could do. Mm-hmm. Like, I would even argue that even like 1080 snowboarding had once they figured out how to handle physics to make it feel like you're really riding through snow, which is what they did in 1080. There wasn't really much after that.
You just made it prettier after that.
Yeah, I mean, Tricky, it was like the arcade style where you could link the tricks together. And SSX Tricky probably is my favorite snowboarding game of all time. There was Amped, which tried to take it the realistic route, which was one of the most infuriating games I ever played.
Can we just agree that SSX Blur was one of the most disappointing things ever?
Wait, was that the Wii one?
Yeah.
I don't know, actually, man.
I hated that one.
I don't know.
Just the presentation of it was just annoying.
It kind of was, but the thing I loved about it was the nunchuck. Like, you could carve with the nunchuck, and if you got good at that game, like, you could reach this other level of play. You know what I'm talking about? Like, there are some games where you kind of break through the wall and you understand, like, how they're supposed to be played. And that game, there is this wall that once you smash through it, it turns into like a completely different game.
I want you to hold on to that and remember that when we play Bloodborne.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what you're describing there.
We'll see about that. But Blur wasn't...
For me, the game I would use as the example, the pure example of that, is a game called Gun Valkyrie.
Yeah, I've played Gun Valkyrie.
Which is the same kind of thing. It's got this weird control scheme, and you don't quite get it at first, and at some point it clicks, and you're like, oh, this game is amazing.
That was an Xbox game,
That was an Xbox game by Sega. It was it was kind of like of that same genre as like Jet Set Radio, where you're like, I have no idea who this game is for, but I'm glad it exists. Yeah. Because it's great.
There's another one, an inline skating game, Jet Set Radio. It was a part of that whole...
Yeah, it had the graffiti thing going on, and then yeah, a lot of people like the second one better, but I like the first one better because the graffiti was a more involved process.
No, you're right. Yeah, you actually had to like put in.
There was a lot more manual control over the character in that, and that's like you're saying on SSX Blur. It's like you either put the time in or you don't. SSX Blur had this weird sort of like graffiti style, like weird street art presentational way that like just bothered me. I don't know why I didn't like it at all, but I just didn't want to look at it.
Dude, I went to the launch party for SSX Blur in Quebec, Canada, in the Ice Hotel.
Oh.
There was cold. like 18 people showed up for it. We had to fly into Quebec, get on this little plane, and then fly through a blizzard up to the Ice Hotel. Ooh. Dude, I've never felt cold like that in my life. Our cameras froze up. Our cameras started getting like the spider webbing of ice across the lenses, and then the mechanics of them started freezing up. We could only shoot for an hour at a time before we had to go back up to the lodge, put all the cameras in a room with the heater. My feet were so cold, I could not feel anything halfway up to my knee. I almost put my feet in the fire to like warm them up. Literally, that's how cold it was up there. I've never felt anything like it. In the Ice Hotel, they have like a bar/club. And there was a DJ in there playing records. This was back when DJs still played records. And the record froze, and the needle skated all the way across the record. They could not play records in there. They served drinks. They had ice cubes of ice. They just drilled a hole in, and they just poured the liquor into the hole, and you just drank it out of the cube of ice. And they're like, you want to spend the night? People spent the night there. The beds were sheets of ice with buckskins on top of them. Insane. Great experience to do once, but I'll never do it again.
You know what I would rather do? I'd rather go to Hawaii and sleep on the beach.
Hell yeah.
We are tropical animals. Yeah. Let's just acknowledge that.
But what was Ubisoft thinking with this game?
I think maybe they're thinking that it's time to bring it all back. I don't know. Like, it's weird. Like, I kind of respect it, but like I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, it's that's the thing is like people talk about
between bravery and stupidity.
Yeah, but people talk about how Ubisoft like never takes risks or it's just the same thing over and over again. No, they do pretty weird stuff periodically. People just forget because they come out, no one cares about them, and they go away.
But it's like I said, there's a thin line between risky and being stupid. And to me, risky is trying like a completely new thing. It's not bringing back something that was old that people have told you they don't like anymore.
Yeah, we'll talk to the people who made The Force Awakens about that.
Yeah.
Because they made almost $2 billion.
No, I get that, but, I was one of the people
Granted, snowboarding is not Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not even close. And I did come out of The Force Awakens being like, damn, I just saw the same movie I saw back when I was 4 years old.
But that's better than the movie you saw in 1999.
You're absolutely right. Touche.
I don't know. I don't even have. I wouldn't even make a bet on this game. I don't know. Like on one hand, I suspect it will just sort of come and go, and no one will care. But at the same time, it wouldn't shock me. It's like, oh, Steep just sold crazy amounts of copies because
really, that wouldn't surprise you.
For some reason, it just caught. I don't know. Maybe,
I don't think this game sells more than 300,000 copies. You think over or under on that?
I don't know. I don't even know what they want out of this game.
It's
I don't know
Ubisoft.
I mean,
they want millions.
Presumably, but you think who would think that's going to sell millions?
Why would they put so much money into it if they thought it wasn't going to sell millions?
Well, so who's the person in the chain of command there that's not being honest with themselves?
I don't know, because Ubisoft does have games that it kind of releases on this almost off-label version of Ubisoft that are these lower budget games that they put out. They make games.
Looking at you, Just Dance.
Yeah, I mean, Just Dance. They make games for stuff like Risk, the board game Risk, and Battleship, and they have this other kind of side label that they put that stuff out on. They don't show that stuff at E3, and they certainly do not close their E3 press conference with those games. This closed their E3 press conference as their big secret that they were waiting to unleash to the world. I don't know.
They just really. I mean, it does look nice. I guess they just thought that was all they needed. Maybe it's because. Maybe it's going to be lucrative no matter how much it sells anyway because they've got so many sponsorship deals happening.
There are a lot of logos in this footage, that's for sure. Love me some Red Bull, though.
Yeah. I feel like we ought to go buy a GoPro tonight.
Yeah, there's one right in there. Yeah. All right, let's move along. So, as I said, got Dishonored 2 sitting right here, burning a hole in my hand right now. Can't wait to pop it in my PlayStation 4 and get playing tonight. No reviews for it out yet.
Nope.
There was some people playing the PC version early. How did that happen? There's some kind of an early access program that they have, or
I don't know.
Somehow people have been playing it for the last couple of days. There are YouTubers who have put up the first 4 or 5 hours.
I have it ordered on Steam. Maybe I should check to see if I can install it. It didn't occur to me to look.
I found a ton of videos on YouTube where people have been playing it up to the first 4 or 5 hours of the game. I felt a little jealous, I have to admit. But reports are coming out that the PC version is having crazy problems. That depending on the settings and the cards that you have and the resolution that you run the game at, it is almost borderline unplayable. The problem is there's no reviews out there to tell you that.
Right.
And why is that?
Because they don't do that
anymore. Yeah, because they don't do that anymore. Do you think there's any chance that they knew this all along, and this is one of the reasons that they've decided to?
No.
No?
I think this is purely because Doom did so well without any kind of review stuff, and they don't think they need it anymore.
You sure?
Yes. I am pretty close to 100% sure, and I also feel like they don't care if the PC version doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough PC customers to matter.
You think?
The money is made on the consoles every single time.
Even for a game like this, you think?
For sure, 100%. This thing will sell a fifth what it sells on consoles on PC.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that, but
a bunch of pissed off PC gamers are never going to change anybody's mind who owns a PlayStation, basically. That's the philosophy, and I think that's what they're sticking with. And also, I don't think they necessarily know this stuff doesn't work very well until it happens. This. I think, but the PC version status probably didn't become clear that this is what it's going to be like when it launches. Until probably after they decided to tell everybody they weren't sending out copies anymore.
Well, PC development is a challenge.
And also,
anyway.
let's not forget that stuff comes out early all the time anyway, and they don't send the PC version out either. And it's not until the game comes out and PC people get their hands on it, they're like, hey, this doesn't work right.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the PS4 and Xbox game versions have been out in reviewer hands for weeks, but you don't get that from reviews because nobody reviews the PC version of things anymore. So Yeah, I feel like this is a pitfall you're up against no matter what if you're a PC gamer right now.
Well, the PC version, I'm assuming, just went on sale about 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
And I am sure that there are at least several thousand people who just bought the PC version and did not know about these issues. So I saw a lot of chatter online when Bethesda announced that they weren't going to allow early reviews anymore that were like, oh, it doesn't matter, you know. I know when I like a game. I know when a game's going to be good. And here, like, the first example from Bethesda, a game is borked. It has all these problems. So I just find it odd that, you know, it's kind of poetic justice a little bit, isn't it?
Well, it's not going to matter, so it's not justice at all.
You don't think it's going to matter?
No.
Well, I guess you could just return it if you buy it on Steam.
You could, but again, the PC version, the PC audience is not large enough to count in that regard. Like, it's not going to matter to anyone.
I don't know.
Who
There's been a
up.
lot of stink over a lot of WB's PC games.
Yeah, but like
Warner Brothers.
And Warner Brothers reacted to that. But Warner Brothers reacted to that with Arkham Knight because they couldn't get it to work.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't think design. You know, it seems to. It's probably like an issue with like particular cards or particular GPUs. That can be fixed with a patch. I don't, you know, Arkham Knight, they couldn't get it to work. Like, basically, they gave up and said, anybody who bought it gets their money back. We're done.
But how do you know that it won't be the case with this?
Because it's not being reported like universally.
It's all over the news today.
No, people in the chat are saying it's a problem with the NVIDIA 10 series GPUs. That like it's not universal.
It's not for every card. Well, no, I said that. It's off the top,
Yeah.
but it's like basic.
But what I'm saying is like
configurations.
Arkham Knight didn't work on
any
anyone's
platform.
PC.
Yeah.
Like that's different than this. This is just, you know, another Bethesda didn't plan for some configuration thing. And I've been running that into Skyrim too. Like there's certain dungeons I go into and it crashes every single time on the same exact footstep.
Really?
You know? And so I just got to wait until they fix it.
Well, I do think,
or until a mod fixes it, which is probably more likely.
One thing I will say is I do believe that Arcane also developed a PC version of this. It wasn't a case where they farmed it out to some other developer. So they don't have one, they don't have a scapegoat. But two,
Right.
it does give me a little more faith that they're going to get it fixed.
Yeah, I mean, I still also think, you know, that's kind of the price you pay as a PC gamer is like, if there's one version that's going to get the short end of the stick, it's going to be the PC version because A, far fewer people buy it, and B, it's way easier to fix it
Yeah.
because the patch can go right up, you know, as opposed to going through Sony or Microsoft QA.
PC development is tough.
It is.
I mean, it is hard because how do you account for all those cards?
Oh, yeah.
And
You don't know until everybody, you know, this guy has this processor running at this overclock speed, matched with this, you know, graphics card with these drivers. And you know, I had this, you know, the same thing happened to me with Battlefield 1. I upgraded to the new NVIDIA game-ready drivers with Battlefield
Yeah.
1 listed in it, and it was running. It was unplayable. Like it would run. It ran at like between 140 frames per second and 20. It would drop and up and down and all over.
talk about VR making me sick.
Stuttering all over the place, and I dropped the resolution to 720 and the graphics to low. Exact same performance.
Wow.
Couldn't figure it out. You know, disabled SLI, did everything, and in the end, I rolled the drivers back to the previous version.
ran like a
Buttery
beast.
smooth, 130 frames a second. Like, it was
Great.
like that was it. And it's like how do you not know that? Like how do you not do that? Like
Yeah.
and who knows what it was because I didn't see anyone else complaining about it. You know, the Titan X, like in all the benchmarks, was running great. And I was like, well, it can't be at first I'm like, oh, I finally hit the first game that the Titan X can't handle fully.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the benchmarks and it's like, no, it's fine.
I don't think that's possible.
It was the drivers. And it's like, and no one else was complaining about that in all the forums and Reddit and stuff that I could find. So clearly it was something about my configuration. And now I have updated the drivers since then, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But clearly it was something about my configuration that was borking it, and what can you do?
Yeah.
Like, you can't test it on everything. And it wasn't like I was like, yay, I want my money back. But I was like, okay, I'll just wait until it gets patched. It's just part of the game.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you're in a position where you have another game to play.
Yeah.
A lot of people
But also-
aren't. A lot of people are like, I bought this game.
But also
I'm
I was
planning
a-
on playing this for the next month.
But also, I was able to fix it by rolling the drivers back. It
Right.
just took hours of experimentation to figure out. That's part of the deal.
Yeah, I mean, I
now
don't
it doesn't
envy
look like
PC
that is the case
developers
with
at all.
Dishonored too. But like, yeah, again, wait for the reviews. Again, if the reviews even help, like how many people are going to review the PC version of this?
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, well, a couple will, like
RPS will, but
and
like
PC Gamer both will. They're the way we curate them because they specifically.
So I don't think it's poetic
versions.
justice, but I think it will. It might finally drive home the lesson of like, look, like if they're not going to release these things early for reviews, particularly the PC version of things, just hang on. Just wait a little bit.
Well, it sucks. I wish we could.
And I'm in the same boat. I pre-ordered it on Steam months ago because I wanted the definitive edition of Dishonored 1, which I've been playing this week, and I'm enjoying a lot more than the last time I played it because the load times are shorter on PC, and that makes a big difference, it turns out.
Well, I wish we could be talking about this game right now and telling people whether they should be going and buying it tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a huge hole in the show that we should be able to supply to our viewers.
Well, part of it is also that, like, why is everything coming out on Friday this year?
I don't know. I think that's the whole people get off work Friday, they go pick up the game, they play it all weekend, go on social media.
Stuff's come out on Tuesday forever, and now, so all of a sudden the big stuff's on Friday.
It does kind of make sense, though, in the new social media world, though, because let's say you buy the game on a Tuesday night. You get 2 hours with that game. You got to go to sleep, go to work all week long. Like, you get your little 2-hour window to play. Put it out on a Friday. People get off work. They buy it on Friday night. And then they play it all weekend, and they are on social media all weekend, talking about it, uploading clips, posting stuff to YouTube.
You kind of hit that fear of missing out effect.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this keeps happening, like, going forward, that these publishers are like, man, like, we're missing our launch window. It is kind of dumb, if you think about it, to release a game on a Tuesday. What relevance does a Tuesday have at all? Friday makes way more sense. And if I were launching a hardware platform, I would launch it on Friday all day, every day, man, because you just want, that's what it's all about. That's how things go from like, hey, that's cool, to, oh my God, it's a sensation, is that launch window, getting that social media action going, all that pin action off of it. And you're not doing that when you're launching something on a Tuesday. Like, it just doesn't happen. So I understand the logic behind it. It is weird because we're just so conditioned for all the big stuff to come out on a Tuesday, but at the end of the day, I think it makes fiscal sense for a publisher. So I totally
Makes it awkward for us, though.
It does, yeah, because now we need to move the show to Saturday. Like,
there's no real good time to do that then.
There isn't, no. So
I guess you could do it Friday night because stuff unlocks tonight, Thursday night.
Yeah, we could do a show on Friday, and that would give us all day Friday. But
we are too old to care about Friday night.
Yeah, I rarely go out on Friday night anymore. I go out on Saturdays. When all the crazies go out on Friday, I go out on Saturday. But I don't know. It's the problem with doing a show on a Saturday is that everything else is old news by then.
Right.
We're actually in kind of a good spot because one thing I'll say is that like all the podcasts that came, or video casts, whatever you want to call them, that came out over the last couple of days, they were talking about all the stuff we talked about in last week's GameFace. Like, we were very lucky. We got to talk about BlizzCon. We got to talk about like some games that came out on Friday. So a lot of the shows that I'll see next week will be redundant to what we talked about today. So I kind of like the Thursday slot, to be honest with you. But obviously, Sifters, if you're hating it or you don't like it, doesn't work for you, feel free to leave it in the comments. I know you will. All right, let's move along. This is a very quick, short story. So Sony updated its Share Factory. Share Factory has turned out to be just sharing from consoles in general. Again, the whole social media thing. Sharing has turned out to be a huge thing with these new machines. Did you ever dream it would be as big as it is?
Well, I don't use it. So
you don't use it?
So I don't really.
You don't take screenshots and upload clips to Twitter and Facebook?
No.
Really?
I did a little bit with No Man's Sky, but then that became it was such a hassle getting it over to where I wanted it because I didn't want to use Twitter or Facebook for it. So I ended up most of my screenshots and movie stuff I get it from my PC.
I just went back and started looking through screenshots that I snapped from Uncharted 4, and holy cow. I've completely forgotten that I had taken all these snapshots. I started looking at them. That game is like mind-blowing. I don't just take snapshots of anything. Like, I wait until I get to like some crazy place and I'll take them. And man, the screenshots I got from Uncharted 4 were just like mind-boggling how awesome
I wish I'd had time to load it up on the Pro before the show to see how it looked, but there's just no... They barely got it to me by 4, so there was no time.
What I found that I do the most, though, is I usually upload clips and screenshots of glitches. Always when I find something goofy, like an NPC with like an arm coming out of his ear, or
well, I mean, the one PlayStation 4 video I have uploaded is the Swagosaurus Rex.
Right,
so
right.
I do pick my moments.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. That's a good segue. So, Share Factory is obviously PlayStation's onboard sharing app. And before you could just share screenshots and video, but now they're taking it a step further with this update, and you can create your own animated GIFs and memes. Your own dank memes. What is it with the dank memes thing? What the hell is that?
What?
What is it? Dank memes.
It's like dank weed.
Why is that term though been associated with memes instead of something else? Like it's like a thing, like dank memes.
Yeah,
like
I
think I read it in like a press release the other day.
Oh yeah, that's years old. That
Really?
term. Oh yeah.
I'm getting old,
It
people.
goes way back. I'm not much younger than you.
I had
I'm
never
up
heard
on
that.
this stuff.
I had never heard. I mean, I had heard it before, but I actually saw it used in like a press release, and I was like,
A lot
what?
of times it's used ironically. It's like, oh yeah, there's some dank memes, dude. It's like because it's like you're using like stupid old stuff
It's
that no
like
one wants
Cool
to see
Story
anymore.
Bro
Right,
or whatever.
Right. But now, like sometimes it's also used like kind of more seriously, but in like an ironic sense of just like it's like you're kind of like, oh yeah, look at that, there it goes. But like, yeah, I mean, sure.
So if you've
Who knows why these things? And I remember when owned became a thing.
yeah,
you know?
you
I was
mean
like,
pwned.
really? Oh, this before it was pwned.
Yeah.
It was just owned.
Yeah.
Back in the
Well,
old
owned
back in the
was-
old M player days.
Well, owned was from like sports and like
Right.
everything. Like that's just like part of just a
Or like
colloquialism.
that guy got housed.
Got house.
What does that mean?
There's
Did you build a house around him? Like
No, I always said that because there's an old track called "I Will House You," and it was like a battle track where house dancers would battle each other, and so that's where I always thought it came from. I honestly don't know.
Maybe.
I think maybe it did start there.
It probably did. It's always conjured an idea in my head of like you like the man, like the guy you house is like unconscious, and you just like build a cabin around him.
Oh, you know what I think
Yeah.
it came from? The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, really? Like drop a house on him?
I think that's where it may have come from. That's just off the top of my head where I think it may have come from. What do you think, Sam?
That's just really random.
Think about it, though. You got house. This house just got dropped on your...
The house dropped on you.
But I always thought it came from that track, but I think that's too obscure for it to ever kind of proliferate pop culture the way that phrase has. But who knows? But so you've never
This
really...
has been internet culture analyzed by 40-somethings. Thank you.
That's funny. But only to us.
Yeah. And our theory is that it was a almost 100-year-old movie
Yeah.
that it came from.
That is great. Is that movie really almost 100 years old?
Nah, it's 1939. So
right.
it's not
Not quite 100 years
Yeah.
old. Only about another...
it's almost 80.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
That's great. So you don't really use the video capture and you don't use the screenshot tool. Will you ever use the dank memes?
know.
This is definitely a tool for the millennials.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like one of those things. For me, it's kind of like, oh, I mean, I could do that, or I could keep playing the game.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't.
I could see myself making animated GIFs every once in a while, just like a
maybe.
little quick loop of something
It kind
crazy
of depends
that
on the
happens.
quality that you
I mean,
get
I've
out
actually
of it.
kind of done that anyway, just with the capture tool, just making the video really short.
Yeah. I mean,
It just doesn't loop.
If I'd done that with Swagosaurus and put it on Reddit myself, I would have had gold by now.
Yeah.
But that thing got 2.5 million views.
It's probably it'll earn for a long time, too. I mean, obviously there's a curve there, and it goes down with every day, but that is so embedded in search engines and on forums everywhere. Like, that thing will just keep serving views.
It's one that you see it if you just put No Man's Sky into Google
Really?
and videos. It's in there. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
I would say it's one of the
Little
most
did you
well-known.
know.
Yeah. Well, because it was in everything. It was even the honest trailers used it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, I guarantee you, Sean Murray has seen it and hates it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't put it up there to be mean. I just thought it was cute. I thought he was adorable.
But I still love this. I love that Sony didn't rest on its laurels. I love the Xbox Record That feature.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing, but like I've disconnected my Kinect now, and I don't really have the feature anymore. It's
Yeah,
like
same.
it's like the only thing it was.
It wasn't
good
that
that
great.
What?
That feature.
Oh, that it's worth
It
keeping
wasn't
the
great enough to
Kinect.
keep the Kinect up. Yeah.
The only reason I disconnected my Kinect is because I thought it was borking my console. I've been having problems with my Xbox One won't turn on.
It's just trying to help.
Yeah. It's still doing it. I'm having problems. It won't turn on. Like, I think my power button went bad, and like I have to keep touching it at different angles, and finally, like, it will turn the thing on.
I have a thing where, like, periodically, and I don't know, I haven't figured out what the pattern is, but, you know, I turn my systems on by pressing the thing on the controller from the couch, right? Periodically,
it won't
won't turn on with the controller. I have to go press it.
And when that happens, my console won't turn on.
Why does it do that?
I don't know.
The 360 never did that.
I don't know.
The PlayStation
it just
4
loses the
doesn't
sync
do that.
between the controller and the hardware. I don't know.
How do you... Like, so much about the Xbox One. It's like, dude, you had it.
You had it right.
Like it all worked, and then now it doesn't. I don't get it. And every time I turn it on, it needs a 3.1 gig update, and how many times can you do that?
I know. It updates a lot. A lot. I used to like that.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
about the Xbox. I used to say, the Xbox 360 is updated twice as often.
The fourth day in a row, they got a 3.1, 3.3 gig update for every time I just want to turn it on and play some Forza Horizon 3, and I'm just like, are you not? I get to the point where I'm like, is this the same update? Or am I just like not installing it properly?
Yeah,
like, what's going on?
Like,
I don't get what's going on there.
I don't get it either. But I like that the consoles have this feature, even if maybe they're not for us.
Yeah.
And I also like
There's no reason not to have it.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Sony's done this. It's updated Share Factory. It's live now. We haven't got any update like that for Xbox.
No.
In fact, I question a lot of the updates we've got for Xbox, like how they've prioritized the updates. I mean, it's like you said, basic features from Xbox 360 still haven't made it to Xbox One. And they keep adding all this frivolous crap that I don't even care about. Like, I don't know who's prioritizing.
Well, they just shifted the entire layout to be vertical instead of horizontal, it's almost the same layout, just rotated.
No, it's the holiday update, man. Everyone's got to get it.
I mean, that just reminds me I should turn it on when I get home so I can update again. Like, it's
it does need to be updated. Well, if you're on the preview program, you already have it. Were you in the preview?
Yeah.
Then you don't have to worry about it.
I don't know. Well, I don't remember the last time I turned it on, though, so I probably do need it.
That might be part of the problem, too, is that we're both in the preview program, which is going open for everybody, by the way. They was just announced that this week that everyone's going to be a part of the preview program. It's going to be called,
in which case it's just a program.
Right. Yeah.
They
gave it another name or whatever. But I think maybe that's why we're getting updates more than others, because we're in that thing. I don't know.
A little tweaking. Maybe it is the same update with little tweaks. They're just redoing the whole thing.
Could be.
It's kind of mean to make me download the 3 gig update 4 times, but okay.
Do you participate in that preview program stuff? Do you go in and, like, do all the stuff they ask you to do?
Like the first couple times, yeah, but not anymore. I don't even know. I don't even see it anymore.
And I think that's why they probably open it up to everybody else, because they're probably like, these people aren't doing anything anymore. There's only so many people, and we're not getting the feedback we need anymore.
Yeah. The only person filling the quizzes out anymore is Joe.
Joe
in Missouri.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
Demographic of 1.
Yeah. Let's move on. Another leak that happened this week. A new Need for Speed called Need for Speed Arena is allegedly in development. It was caught at a trademark office website. Do we need another Need for Speed, Matt?
I would like one day to see a Need for Speed as good as the original Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit. So yes, keep trying.
I still think...
I was kind of hoping by this point they'd have given up on Need for Speed and let Criterion make another Burnout, but I guess not. Burnout is apparently gone.
Well, the Need for Speed that we're looking at right now, I thought it just killed it off. Like, I was like, that's done.
Was this the last one?
Yeah. It came out last year. It's just called Need for Speed.
Really?
It was their reboot, yeah.
Another reboot?
Yeah.
Wow.
This was one of the first ones.
Because I liked Rivals pretty well, and whatever the one before that was, Most Wanted? Was that Most Wanted?
No.
Because it was Rival. What was the...
Was it Carbon? No, that's old.
No, that's old. Because it was like the launch... next-gen launch one. Was that Rivals?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And then there was another one, which was Most Wanted?
Yep, which had already been used before.
Yeah.
Way back in the day.
And then, because 4 was Most Wanted, or another one was Most Wanted. And then, because then the Hot Pursuit was before that by Criterion, and that was a remake of 3 Hot Pursuit.
This game, by the way, had never raced in the daytime.
Oh, really? Wow. Because Rivals was the open world one. Yeah, I like that one okay. I like the open world ones more than the other ones, kind of. But like my favorite one is still Hot Pursuit 3, or Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit on PlayStation 1. Yeah, PlayStation 1 and PC.
And PC, yeah.
Because like I like those old point-to-point tracks they had, which were like crazy weird, like Atlantica, which was like some kind of weird future-y underwater city kind of thing.
Yeah.
And all that. I love all that stuff, and they never they never really recaptured that. But like 3, Porsche Unleashed on PC was amazing. 4, Most Wanted was pretty good. And then they kind of wandered off into weird places and started trying to be Fast and the Furious without the license.
Yeah.
And then this series has been fumbling for over a decade at this point, it feels like. Just trying to find what works, and they can't make a decision.
I feel
like you had things like The Run, which was just like, what? Like, who wanted the story-driven Need for Speed game, exactly?
It was so bad. It was so freaking bad. I mean, now that I have Forza Horizon 3...
Yeah,
I have no reason to have another Need for Speed.
That does pretty much scratch the same itch.
It does everything. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it is like the racing game for everyone. Like, you can even set it up so it's like all simmy if you want to. Like, obviously it's not going to go as far as like Forza Motorsport in that regard, but it's pretty darn close. And on the flip side, it's like it has a crazy collection of cars. You can race cars like this supercar that's got everything. Off-road, like... And look, I realize not everyone has an Xbox One, and so, some people need games like this so that they have that option on their plate. But, man, if you've got an Xbox One...
wait for Gran Turismo to show up.
Yeah, I mean, who knows when that's going to happen at this point. But, if you've got an Xbox One, just buy Forza Horizon 3. You don't really need to buy another racing game, like, maybe ever.
But, like, I like Need for Speed back in the day when it was, like, a little more fanciful and a little more arcadey, and wasn't quite as worried about how extreme it could be, and how many like racing girls would lean into your window and say how cool you were and all that stuff. It's just like when it was just like, we're gonna make interesting, weird environments and tracks and run like some hot Ferraris down it, and like it's gonna be super fast, and maybe the turning isn't particularly realistic, but it's sure gonna be cool. Yeah. And then the cops are gonna chase you, and they're all like, I think Hot Pursuit on the PlayStation 1 still holds up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, it's still good. And so same with like, and the difference can be as minor as a particular developer's take on it. Because you remember, which one was it? I think it was Most Wanted, where there was a PC version and an Xbox version, and that was one game by one, and then the PS2 version was by Black Box, and it was a totally different game, and it was awesome.
Oh yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah, which one was that?
I think that was Most Wanted. I want to say it was the original Most Wanted 4.
No.
Yeah.
Not the original Most Wanted. The original Most Wanted is like a PC game from like forever ago.
The early 2000s. It was around there. I want to say it was Most Wanted.
I thought it was in the 90s.
No. No, this was Xbox One, PS2, and PC. And the PS2 version was a totally different game from the other one.
Huh.
It was faster.
Maybe
it was
that's
crazier.
Carbon.
It wasn't Carbon. Carbon was like an underground racer, Fast and the Furious kind of thing. This was a standard Need for Speed game. Huh. It was maybe the last of the standard, because that was the game that got Black Box basically the lead position in the Need for Speed franchise, and they were the ones who EA was they were their go-to developer. For
what I just realized?
For a while.
What is a good arcade racer for PlayStation 4? I can't think of any.
Is there a Ridge Racer?
No.
Like if you turn all the assists on Drive Club?
Actually, why didn't Need for Speed sell then?
Maybe nobody wants it.
Nobody wants arcade racers.
Or maybe nobody trusts Need for Speed anymore.
Maybe? That blows my mind. There is not a good arcade racer for PlayStation 4 yet.
That's what I can think of.
There's got to be one.
Black Box 2005. Yeah. I want to say that was... Yeah, I want to say that was Most Wanted, but maybe it wasn't. I think it was.
I am shocked that there's not a good arcade racer yet for a PlayStation 4. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
because Need for Speed ended up settling in around like a 6 in Metacritic.
I forgot it came out.
Yeah. Because the problem is their first-party studio is creating rigid simulations and not creating like arcade-style stuff.
Right. Well, also, like, just ditch it and go back to Burnout, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Like, why are you still trying to compete with stuff like Forza Horizon when like you don't have the chops for it? Just go back and make Burnout again. Because Burnout is at least unique. Burnout is different. By the way, I mean Burnout like 3, like not like I didn't like Burnout Paradise because it wasn't Burnout to me. It was just one of these games basically. and bouncing along the road as a wreck with like analog control is not a replacement for crash mode.
Yeah, but look, I can see where EA now. I can see why EA would make another Need for Speed because there is
theoretically no competition.
Yeah, there's a huge
system.
gaping hole, and look, EA is the type of publisher that will do the research to figure that out and be like, "Hot damn, we just."
But you know what would sell over Need for Speed? Burnout. People are waiting.
Yeah.
You want to talk? Forget Steep. You're waiting for something to come back from the '90s. Burnout.
I think the problem is a lot of the developers that worked on Burnout are gone.
Maybe, but Criterion's still
now
there.
Now they're making like extreme golf games.
Wow. I mean, Criterion's still there. There's got to be some pedigree left.
So that's what I'm saying. A lot of the guys who were on that Burnout team left to go start that indie studio.
Mm-hmm. But I'm also saying, it's like, look, at this point, what? Like the heyday of Burnout, the people...
Burnout 2 is the heyday of Burnout.
2 and 3 were the best, for sure. And I'd say, like, the people who were, like, 12 to 15 when that came out are in their mid-20s now, so maybe they could make one. They know why they liked it. They know what made it good.
It's true.
Hand it to the younger generation. See if they can make a Burnout that's for the ages.
I feel like this whole episode has been... This is like the games that shouldn't be episode. We talked about Metro. We're like, why would they make another one of those? We're talking about Need for Speed. We're like, why would they make another one of those? It's just been one of those episodes for whatever reason. But it's time to move on. We were talking about Japan a little earlier with Xbox, and I'm just wondering if maybe the reason that they're sticking around in Japan is because Japan's tastes in games have started to drastically change, Matt. They have started buying first-person shooters. The last 2 out of the last 3 weeks, the top-selling game in Japan has been a first-person shooter. First, it was Battlefield 1. It debuted with like 100,000 in its first week, and now Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, just on the PlayStation 4, did 120,000 in its first week in Japan, destroyed Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. I think Dragon Ball had like 60 or 70,000, and Call of Duty did like 120 in its first week. What's going on?
Did a bunch of people from the UK move to Japan?
No, we might be moving to Japan. Things go really south. People are talking about moving to Canada. Screw that. I'll move to Japan. But we would choose Canada over Japan.
No, I would choose California. I ain't going anywhere.
Why do you think this is? Do you think maybe it's like esports? Or do you think it's like, because look, Splatoon. Wasn't Splatoon kind of like the first game to kind of turn the tide a little bit?
Maybe.
Because it became a hit. Like, it's one of like the only real like out of the blue hit from the last few years in Japan. Like, as far as like a new franchise that really caught on and people loved. And I'm wondering if Splatoon was the gateway drug. And they play a little bit of Splatoon and they're like, wait a minute, this is kind of fun, but what's up with these other games?
Somewhat. I mean, there might be a little bit of runoff from Overwatch on that, too. I don't know how Overwatch is doing in Japan.
I don't know, actually. I never did see the sales for that.
But, I mean, it could be. Like, suddenly it's like, oh, these are pretty good. I wonder what these are like. That could be happening.
I mean, you go to...
Also, Infinite Warfare is crazy enough.
Yeah.
To get some attention from, like, kind of a sci-fi fan in that general regard. And there's also some fascination, I think, with the world wars over there, as I understand it, because there's not a lot of history taught about those things over there.
Yeah.
I certainly remember going over. It was in 2003 for TGS, and that was when EA was showing their Pacific Assault. I can't remember. It wasn't Ally Assault. Pacific Assault.
Was that the PS2 shooter?
Something, yeah. It was Medal of Honor.
Was that the one where the people would pop up from under the ground?
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Pacific. From the little foxholes.
Yeah.
I think it was Pacific Assault. Was that
I think it
Rising,
was.
Or maybe it was Rising Sun or something like that. It was something like that. But
I think it was Rising Sun, actually.
Yeah, but it was set in the Pacific Theater.
Yeah.
And so it was at TGS. They had all these signs everywhere. There were these Japanese guys, like the models, and they're walking around in U.S. Marine outfits and stuff. And finally, it was confusing the hell out of me, basically. And I turned to our audio guy, who was a 60-something-year-old Japanese guy, a local crew, and I said, "Can I ask you something?" He's like, "Sure." I'm like, "How do you sell that game here? It's like because in America it's like a rah-rah, like, go fight the enemy, we were the good guys thing. And here it's like, what? Come buy this game and kill your grandfather kind of thing? Like it's like, I don't
that
understand.
game was insensitive.
Like, I don't understand how you sell that here. And he said, well, it's because here it's like that war happened to somebody else.
Oh.
Like, it's not taught here. Like, like the Japanese youth don't really know what that was or what we did. And he's like, do you remember that movie Pearl Harbor? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. He said that was a big thing here because, like, the youth didn't know that it was real, that it actually happened. So they went to see it to find out what this whole thing was about, and the government was very upset that these kids were finding out that this was part of the history of World War II of Japan, because they try to not talk about it as much as they can.
But Japan has changed drastically.
Yeah. And I remember that, because I remember also being confused, like, why would you even try to release a first-person shooter here? Because it doesn't seem like a genre that anybody cares about.
I mean, look, Infinite Warfare right now is one of the best-selling games of the year in Japan after 1 week.
So I'm
I
wondering.
never thought I'd ever see that.
So what I'm saying is, like, maybe Battlefield 1 in its historical kind of spectacle has a similar interest to some players over there that didn't get that part of the history unit,
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a similar appeal to it here because World War I is just not particularly focused on, even in America.
It's never.
So because it's always just sort of that thing that happened before World War II, and like.
Well, a lot of it has to do with just the inability to really record the history of it.
Yeah, a lot of World War II is on film.
Yeah.
Which is it makes it very different.
And World War I, it's like photographs. There might be a couple grainy videos.
Oh, there's footage. I mean, there's enough footage to put together a couple of History Channel specials, for sure. There's been stuff like that. However, also, a lot of World War I is just like everybody's in this one little 30-square-mile part of France and just kind of goes back and forth in the mud, and everybody gets trench foot, and that's the end of it. Like World War II is like, I mean, Star Wars came out of World War II. Like, it's a battle of good and evil, and it's the last great major. It was.
Hopefully.
Well, yeah, but like
I'm starting to wonder.
It's World War II, and also like you don't have any questions about who's good and who's bad in World War II. Like the Nazis are like the perfect enemy because you don't have to think about it,
Yeah.
Whereas like with World War I, you're like, well, why was the Axis doing this? And like you have to get into like kind of like 300 years of inter-kingdom warfare and backbiting and political problems that kind of led to that became this little boiling pot that all got set off when an archduke got shot.
Right.
It was like it's not nearly as clear cut as like, oh, this crazy dude with a mustache that he stole from Charlie Chaplin invaded Poland and we all had to get in that shit.
Yeah.
It's a different thing, and like. Maybe there's just the novelty of that combined with, like you say, the more willingness to look at these competitive shooters as influenced by Splatoon that's causing a little more people to kind of say, oh, and also, again, not a type of game you can get mobile.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Like, that's not something you can play on your phone properly, so, like, it's a more unique experience.
Talk about late to the party. Japan is really late to the party on first-person shooters.
Hey, better late than never.
But imagine...
And imagine if you just got into first-person shooters, if you're a Japanese game player, imagine how much you have to play
That's
now.
what I do. Not only that, but it like, for us, it was like a gradual thing where, like, they add these features and these ideas to each successive shooter till we get to where we are now. Mm-hmm. They just went from like 0 to like 1,000. Like they don't have any of those warm-up games that we had.
Yeah. You know what I actually
crazy.
dug? I was digging through a box because I have tons of physical copies of PC games that I now have replaced digitally.
I had a lot.
Yeah. So I'm like digging through my box again to find like stuff that I don't need. I don't need to keep the discs of games I have on Steam or GOG. So I just like, and I found my old copy of Medal of Honor Allied Assault. And I was like, oh, I should install this and see if I could. Why?
Yeah, why would you do that?
Because it's like it kind of hit me. It's like the appeal of shooters, at least if you've gone through the Western, explosion of shooters, as an apt term, but like part of it is just the advance of technology and how much better everything looks and plays as you move forward. So like going back to Medal of Honor Allied Assault would be a pure nostalgia trip, rather than like, oh, it's still fun to play. It's more like, oh, wow, look how far we've come.
Well, that's why Call of Duty 4 was such an achievement.
Right.
Because I can still go back and play that today and enjoy it. And in fact, I've been enjoying it a great deal. So
I think that comes out, I don't remember when or even who did. I think it was either Miyamoto or Ken Lobb. But basically when they were talking about the making of GoldenEye and Perfect Dark was the idea that when they originally started making it, they just made it with like blank polygon model, and basically
made sure it was fun.
They made sure it was fun to play, even if it looked like nothing.
Miyamoto's been doing that forever,
and like
he does that with Mario games too.
And
he just makes Mario a square, and he's like,
right.
if it's not fun to control the square, it's not gonna be fun to control whatever he's actually.
And I think
animating.
like Modern Warfare, especially the remastered one, kind of proves it's like that gameplay holds.
Yeah,
it still feels good to draw that bead and make that headshot
for sure. So. I love it. I love that Japan's spreading its wings. God knows we don't need any more like Vita JRPGs. I think there are plenty. I'm hoping that what happens is the Japanese become more interested in this genre, and then some of the Japanese developers start making some shooters. We've got a few here and there. There's that Ghost in the Shell like free-to-play game that's coming out, but Japanese-developed first-person shooters are very rare, and so I would love to kind of see them put their perspective and their spin on that genre. And, I mean, Splatoon. I guess there's a good example of what happens when the Japanese develop in a genre that they're not typically developing in, and it's great. It's really an interesting shooter and something different. So I hope that their culture keeps accepting the shooter and that ultimately it'll convince some of the developers there to start creating some games in that genre. So,
and then it might be worth buying an Xbox or two.
No, there you go.
For Halo.
That's right.
If Halo ever gets worth playing again.
Yeah. That's a big if, it seems like. All right, let's move on to the last topic of today's show, and the biggest topic of today's show as well. Undoubtedly the biggest story, the biggest thing that happened this week. Mass Effect Andromeda blown out for the first time, really. Can you believe...
First real trailer.
Yeah, can you believe that we've known about this game all this time, and we just now got a real trailer?
Well, I can, I can believe
really?
it. I don't...
For a game that's coming out in, allegedly, in 5 or 6 months?
Well, I mean, that's pretty much how Bethesda rolled with Fallout 4, but, but granted, it was more rumors rather than confirmation. They hadn't talked about it, but it's I wouldn't mind seeing EA moving to a more, compressed timeline when it comes to releasing their preview content. Maybe this comes from that, 2-year period where I think I did so many Dragon Age previews that I don't remember how many there were. It must have been 15 Dragon Age previews in the side of 1 year, because EA just wants to build and build and build that mind share, and so by the time the game comes out, you're kind of sick of it. And kind of compressing this into not having to watch Mass Effect Andromeda footage until within a year, a year or less of the game coming out. I'm kind of in favor of that. So I guess I'm kind of surprised in the sense that I wouldn't have thought EA had it in them.
Yeah.
But I don't disagree with the thought.
So what do you think, Matt? We've been waiting a long time for all this information.
It looks cool. It doesn't look particularly like Mass Effect in some ways.
Hey, Sam, roll the first clip that we have.
But I'm
there.
interested.
4-minute one?
Yeah, it's called B-roll, I think it is. Are you interested in it?
Yeah. I mean, I still have the same skepticism over the characters in the story. That's what I'm here for. But it certainly looks nice. It seems like this is going to be a showcase for kind of the PS4 Pro 4K thing. I remain... Much like Last Guardian, I remain hopeful but skeptical. I won't know until I play this thing.
I mean, lots of details.
Yeah.
Shown off for the first time. It's the BioWare, or they're saying that it's not the beginning of a trilogy.
No, I think, what was it, they're probably going to make more, but they won't all necessarily have you playing as the riders, basically.
Isn't that crazy, though? I mean, I guess it's not
really.
that crazy. It's only crazy when you think about them, because that's how they do things. But most games tell one story, and then they move on for the sequel. I mean, especially when a game's 50 hours long, you can definitely satisfy a story arc in 50 hours.
It also does not surprise me in the sense that I'm sure they do not want to do the whole your decisions carry over for 2 more games thing, because they barely pulled it off in the last one.
I mean,
and nobody was happy with it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
But that's the thing, is yes, it was disappointing that your decisions didn't factor directly, over the course of 3 games, and directly factor into what the ending was. But in terms of how 3 played out, that took into account over 100 different like little variables, and that's I've played through these things 3 separate times, and 3 was surprisingly different in many ways depending on what I'd done in the previous games with those different characters. It still came down to the same pick a color ending, but like in terms of what the third game really paid off in terms of all those decisions with those individual characters over the course of the game, that was pretty impressive. But I can understand why you would not want to try that again.
Well, they haven't gone on... I think somebody asked them if their saves will work in this game. And they were non-committal. They didn't say no.
I don't see how that would matter, though. Because, like, I think the expedition to go out to Andromeda, it starts, like, 10 years before the Reapers show up in Mass Effect 1, and they leave, like, right around the time of Mass Effect 2, I want to say. So, like, I feel like whatever Shepard did isn't really going to matter. Like, they've been in a sleeper ship for 200 years, basically. Like, what's it going to change?
Relationships, maybe?
Of what? Like, no one in this ship is going to know what happened back there.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
They're in another galaxy. There's very few places you could be further removed from what happens on Earth than another galaxy.
Yeah.
Like, they're never going to know what happens on Earth ever again, basically. There's, like, communication would take years.
Do you think that's a good idea?
Probably. I mean...
Really?
I mean, I'd rather them not try to build on the Shepard thing.
Don't you feel like, though, us as human beings who are playing video games, that in games like this, at least for me personally, I always feel like I want to know what's going on or have some kind of an attachment to Earth?
Well, we do know what happened. Like, because at the end of Mass Effect, you've got that little vignette thing where Buzz Aldrin's terrible voiceover tells you, it turns out that the Mass Effect games were a story being told to by some old guy to his grandchild, like hundreds of years later, when Shepard had become a legend more than a historical figure, possibly around the time that they arrive in Andromeda, 200 years later. So we know that basically it all worked out pretty well, and humanity or sentient life is still around in some form, and they tell stories of the Shepard, and the Shepard's a hero, so apparently the Reapers didn't kill everybody, so I guess we're good, Like, that's all we need to know, and frankly, like, I like even with the disappointing ending, I love the Shepard trilogy in Mass Effect so much that I'd rather they just step away from it. And I would rather this not be called Mass Effect, but, like, if you're going to continue the brand...
I agree they need to get away from the story arc that they did.
Yeah, they jump to another galaxy, they've brought the races that everybody likes with them so they can populate the new galaxy with Asari Turians and Solarians and whatever. And now it's a clean break. It's like you don't have to worry about the old continuity. We can just tell stories with the same kind of interpersonal dynamics and interracial dynamics on a galactic scale, and we have all these new things we can explore because we're not tied down to what happened in the other games, and like we have to acknowledge the Geth are in this part of the galaxy and the Turians are over here, and you can do whatever the hell you want, but you still kind of have the trappings that people like from Mass Effect. So it's probably the smartest way to go. It's a clean break.
I mean, the one thing I would say about the footage that they've shown so far is it doesn't appear that there's any, like, civilization, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It just seems like you're out on these far-flung, like, alien planets, but there's no home. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Is it like, when you play games like this, I feel like I need to have an attachment to some place that feels like home.
Well, your home is going to be that colony ship,
right? But that's not a home. That's
sure it
just
is.
like a hunk of metal flying through space.
It's their home. That's what it. I mean,
right. Well, it takes 200 years to get somewhere or whatever. But
and you're going to probably upgrade it and do all the usual mother-based stuff with it. But like, that's fine.
But I mean,
in Mass Effect, your home is the Normandy.
Yeah.
And you're getting a ship that's like the Normandy, they've said in this, because they recognize that was sort of your home base idea.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure they're going to give you all the trappings, all the settings, all the dressings of Mass Effect in some, shifted form or another. You even got a generic title, you're the Pathfinder.
Yeah.
It's all this,
it sounds like Destiny is what it sounds like.
You were the Shepherd, now you're the Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Later will be the Harvester, or the Reaper, or the Fallen.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
the Vex.
Yeah.
Or the Watcher, or the Sphere, or the Traveler. Everybody likes definite articles in these space games, apparently. Everything's the something.
Yeah. I wonder if fans, though, will be disappointed that there's no connection to the old games. I mean, I know you're a fan, obviously, but I'm talking about, like, the more casual folks who...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's connected enough. You got the N7 logo.
That's all you need?
You're fine, you know. It's the same, similar
I mean,
kind of gameplay.
honestly, if it weren't for that N7 logo, though, I would have no idea this was the next Mass Effect, really. Or the Nomad. The Nomad is a pretty good tell.
I mean, yeah, you're right. At the same time, I take that as a positive because again, I don't want them to try to mess around with what they already did. It's fine, and they barely got through it as it was.
Yeah, it was.
So
they dragged their asses across the finish line.
Step away, turn this way, and go that direction. And this is what we're going to do with this franchise from now on. And that's fine. If they don't want to make it a trilogy, and they want to make this one about the Ryder family, and then the next one will take place in the Andromeda galaxy, like, you know, whatever years later, and we'll get to see how that all evolved. That we're going to be a different group of people or a different set of twins or whatever we want to do here. Great. Like, that's a good way to go about it.
We have completely forgot to mention the game looks absolutely stunning.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. The graphics in this game.
Like I said, this is going to be a game that makes you happy you bought the Pro.
Yeah.
Unless you're playing it on PC.
Holy moly, man. Like, this game is some next level stuff, provided all this stuff is real time, I mean, which I think it is.
Yeah, EA doesn't run bull shot footage too much.
Yeah,
individual shots, screenshots.
I think it may be actually like the original genesis of the bullshot.
Oh, it is. The Madden screenshots were that. But footage, they're usually pretty honest
Great timing.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why this couldn't be real as far as like a 4K PC or the Pro. You know, hell, those Horizon Zero Dawn shots from the Pro look like bull shots in motion.
They do, yeah.
So,
yep. Let's go through a couple quick things they announced here. The Collector's Edition comes with a remote-controlled Nomad, but doesn't come with the game, if I remember correctly. It's another one of those Collector's Editions where it's like a couple $100. No, I don't think it even comes with the game at all.
What?
Yeah.
That's weird.
But you get a remote-controlled Nomad.
I did see at Best Buy, there's a $60 statue they're selling, or like vinyl statue thing of the main character from Watch Dogs 2.
Oh, God.
Which just strikes me as putting the cart before the horse
That's going to fly off the shelves. Let's see, the voice cast was announced. Did you take a look at that at all?
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Who? Did they say anyone?
No one that really stood out to me. Multiplayer beta on the way. Sign up for it right now.
Similar to Mass Effect 3's kind of co-op stuff?
I don't know. I didn't actually look at the modes that are.
Yeah, I read some of it, and basically it sounds like it's a permutation of what Mass Effect 3 was. Although they swore the microtransactions would not be necessary, you'd earn. You know, but it's probably gonna be like an Overwatch.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I like the multiplayer on 3.
You know what? I played it like 2 nights.
I played it a lot. I played a fair amount.
Did you?
I think I maxed out all the different classes.
Wow.
When I went back to play it again, like with all the DLC, I didn't touch it because I didn't.
People always try to get me to play it, and I played it for a couple days, and I was like, I don't like it.
It was fun. I liked it, but
I
like the gameplay of Mass Effect in general. So if you're not, it was kind
I did. I mean, I liked it.
It was fine.
I thought it could be better.
I mean, it was a little.
But I never looked at it like this is a third-person shooter. Mm-hmm. I looked at it like this is an RPG with shooting in it, and I think maybe I gave it a little bit of a pass.
I think it was about half and half by the time Mass Effect 2 showed up. I think 1 was more of an RPG with half-ass shooting elements.
Yeah.
And 2 and 3 really beefed up how those shooting elements worked.
3 felt like a third-person shooter.
Yeah. And I like horde modes in general, so it was right up my alley anyway. But it's certainly not the best thing I ever played that year.
Do you sign up for the beta?
Probably not.
You're not gonna?
I don't think so. I don't need to see this until it comes out.
I do want to see it.
Well, because
that's exactly why I want to sign up for the beta. I want to see the graphics.
Well, it's because that part of it isn't important to me.
Yeah.
Like this thing.
Then why did you buy this?
What?
You said that part of it isn't important. The graphics.
The multiplayer is not important to me.
Oh, multiplayer. I'm talking about the visuals. Like I want to see what the game looks like.
Well, I've seen it. I'll see it when it comes out. This thing is all story and character to me. I don't care about the multiplayer. I like the visuals, but they're not going to matter if I don't like these characters.
Wow. You're setting yourself up for a fall there, though.
I'll set myself up for a good game.
Yeah.
Which is all I want them to deliver. And a good Mass Effect game is all story and characters to me.
Yeah.
Mainly characters, because the story kind of falls apart in Mass Effect.
Yeah, it does, ultimately.
It's like Mass Effect 2's overall framing device is pretty weak, but it's the best character-driven writing in any game ever, I think.
Yeah, it is really good. It made me care about characters that I didn't think I would care about.
Because Mass Effect 2 is basically a short story collection.
Yeah.
Like, every character gets their own little short story, and, like, you go through that, and then the framing device is the stupid Human Reaper thing, which is ridiculous, but, like, and the suicide mission. But, like, which is cool, but I think, it was anticlimactic. The ending was sort of like, really? Like, you thought that was fun? The giant skeleton thing? Like, that was just sort of comical.
I honestly don't like the art that much in Mass Effect. Like, a lot of the creatures and the alien designs and all that, like, it never really resonated with me. And I would meet these characters, and I'd be like, ew, like, who drew this character? And then I would end up falling in love with them. Like, not literally, well, a couple of them, but I would always, it was because of the writing and the way they developed their characters, and like it was.
Oh, yeah, it's like I don't.
What they're really good at.
I don't think the design of the Solarians is particularly interesting.
Yeah.
But Morden is my favorite character in the whole series because he's just incredibly well written, and at one point he sings Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. It's like it really was all about those characters, and that's why, like, to me, the ending of that series is the Citadel DLC, where you have a party with all your buddies, and everybody gets their little jokey moment, and everybody gets a little in-joke happening, and it's great. Like, I don't care about the pick-your-color ending so much as, like, that little send-off. Like, that's the end to me.
This game, it just doesn't... I don't know what it is. It looks awesome. It's obviously graphically and technically, it's stunning. It just doesn't seem to have the same charm as the other ones.
Sort of, but I feel like to get the charm of Mass Effect, you have to like
absorb
get into it more.
And,
Like we need to know more. We need to.
We're just seeing little vertical.
We need to go through the journey. We need to hang out on whatever the equivalent of the Citadel is. That's what I think you're going to get. Your home base is going to be like a Normandy equivalent, and then the colony ship is going to be the Citadel, essentially.
I can see that.
What is this galaxy map? Well, the galaxy map is apparently more of an immersive thing. And like, there's no load times, and there's no like just move the ship and pick the thing. It's more like fly through the galaxy, and that's where you're going to go. And then by the time you have to go out of the back of the ship and drop out, and that's cool. So it's less stop and go than the old one. But like that to me, like that's one of the big things about Mass Effect. You go up to that galaxy map and it zooms in and that music starts playing and it's like, I love it. Like that, I love like zooming in that galaxy map and having like a full quest log, and I have so much to do in the galaxy now. And that's what I want out of this is like this like that feeling of being in the hands of a game that like knows where it's going and knows what it's telling and knows what it's saying. And does EA have that in them at this point? Does BioWare have that in them now? I don't know.
I do know one thing, though. It does look like it is still coming out in the spring, despite what they said on their earnings report last week. All the promotion. I think something else leaked out this week as well that pointed to spring.
Yeah, I feel like we wouldn't have gotten this now if it wasn't still on track.
Well, it was N7, November 7th.
Yeah, well.
They kind of had to do something, right?
I suppose.
Yeah. So I'm excited for it. I actually kind of like the fact that it seems a little unfamiliar.
Well, it should
because we already played,
galaxy.
And we've also played 3 games, 100+ hours worth of the other stuff. So I agree with
700
you.
for some of us.
Yeah. I didn't go that far. So I do agree with you.
I've spent a full month of my life playing Mass Effect.
That's crazy. But I do agree with you. It probably is a good thing to kind of get a fresh perspective into the franchise and look at it a little differently.
And if I hope they do pull it off, because like I'd love to have more Mass Effect to love.
I would love to see some cities or some civilization. I don't know if that's in the cards, but
look, if you go to the Andromeda Galaxy and there's nobody there, that's a pretty boring game. So I feel like you're gonna. I wonder if some of that is like they don't want to show it yet, because clearly we're going to have a bunch of the old Mass Effect races with us because they all came on that colony ship. But there's going to be some new ones.
Yeah.
There's going to be some different stuff. There's going to be something we've never seen before. So that's going to be, I'm sure, part of the thrust, at least of the early part of the game, is discovering who rules this galaxy.
Yep. All right, let's move on to our trailer of the week. Dishonored just came out an hour ago. So some of you guys may have left the stream to go play. I don't blame you one bit. As I said in an earlier episode, it's probably my most anticipated game of Q4, and I've got it right here in my hands. Instead, I'm here talking to you guys about video games when I should be playing one. So our trailer of the week is the launch trailer for Dishonored 2. Let's roll it.
Look around you. You haven't been watching the dark corners of the world. Maybe living in a palace has made you soft.
Your Majesty, we have an unexpected visitor. I present the lost sister of Jessamine Caldwin. Delilah Caldwin.
Impossible.
I'm here to relieve you of your crown.
But someone yanked the rug from under your feet. You've lost your throne and your father. And I promise, Delilah won't just give them back.
No!
So, what are you prepared to do about it, Your Imperial Majesty? Delilah's playing the long games. And now she's an empress. How many of your own subjects are you ready to slaughter? And what are you willing to become?
Take it! Oh, shit! We'll be face to face soon. Delilah.
I think I'm just going to check out early and just go, just start playing
really
this
makes
right
the
now.
first one, makes the first one look mundane.
It really does. The first one was kind of a little bit mundane, though.
Yeah, but
I've mentioned it before that it was one of those drab, kind of dreary games.
It had
but
some verve to it, though, and then you have the teleporting and stuff. But like
Yeah.
that one, everything's on a totally different level. It barely looks like the same series.
it really does look different. I'm glad about that. Though.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so excited for it, because the gameplay in the first one was amazing, but it didn't get me excited to play it, I think is what it was. And like I would play it for a night and I'd have a really good time, but I'd come home from work and I'd stare at it and be like, nah. Like I don't know.
But I always felt like the temptation in that game always was for me to kill people, to be a little more lethal than the game seemed to want me. And I always felt like it was like judging me for playing it like a murderer, basically.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, you keep calling me an assassin, and then you like give me like, you're gonna get a bad ending if you don't choke more people out instead of stabbing them in the face. And I'm like, why do I have this sword
if I
I'm
can't
not gonna
stab
kill
somebody
anybody?
in the face with it. So before we get into the questions, actually I did see a question about it. So we do have the PlayStation 4 Pro here, which also just came out. This is Matt's, by the way. He got it just today. You may have seen him earlier, wiping the couple pieces of dust off the top of it, as people often do whenever they get new hardware.
Yeah, this is more spit. This is where we've been pat all over it.
Tell the story about the power button on the front there. You thought it was like
the power symbol is this tiny little thing there.
I guess you got to move it back actually for him to see it. Yeah,
it's this tiny little thing, and at least 3 times today I've tried to wipe it off because I thought it was like a speck of dust or something.
Power
it's tiny.
icon.
And there's the same thing over here with the eject button. It's pretty cool. I've not tried to replace. I've not replaced the hard drive yet. I just put in Robinson and played it to see if it was any different. Which I think maybe it was, because it's like, it looks sharper, but I think I said to you maybe before the show, I don't remember if I said it on the show, but it's like when you go to the eye doctor and they do things like, this one or this one? This one or this one? And I'm like, this one, I think? I might be making that up in my head.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know if Robinson's Pro Mode is active yet, or if it was shipped on the disc. Who knows? But like, yeah, it's nice. I was setting it up. My girlfriend came in. She's like, "That's it." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "It's just it's a PS4 with another story on it."
Which is true. That's
it's
pretty much what it is.
It's a triple layer cake. Yeah. That's all it is.
It's really heavy. It's the one
it
thing
is
I
very
would
heavy.
say. Like it weighs at least twice.
It's also very hot.
PlayStation 4. It gets really hot.
It was very warm when I unplugged it. I played Robinson for like 2 hours, and I put it in a bag, and I took it over here. And when I took it out to put it on here, it was still warm. It was still hot. Power, HDMI, camera, PlayStation camera, digital audio, something else, Ethernet.
What is the something else?
I don't know. It might be just USB.
Oh, okay.
And then that's the hard drive in there. I'm not going to be able to get this from this angle, am I?
Don't break it.
Yeah, just throw it out.
Here's what I think is really cool. The feet
Oh,
on the back. I don't know if... Let me see if I can get the angle right there. The feet are the PlayStation
Yeah, the triangle.
Icons. They're like the little rubber feet that
And
it
the
sits on.
triangle X, triangle X, square. Yeah.
There you can see it there. It's even got the PlayStation logo on the bottom, not just on the top. It's a nice kit of hardware, though. I'm pretty impressed with it, and it is definitely heavy.
Yep.
Is this designed to sit that way? I guess it is.
Yeah, there's a vertical stand you can buy separately, of course, because why would you get that for free?
Yeah. And then it's crazy, like down in these crevices, it actually has like the Blu-ray like logos.
There's like the
and
HDMI
stuff.
logo and the Blu-ray. And
Can you flip to the one shot there?
Dolby and DTS.
Trying to get it at the angle so you can see it. But it's weird how they stuck them in those cracks in there. It's pretty crazy. So you haven't had much time with it yet?
Not really. Just a couple hours of Robinson, and the update. You load it up. You got to update it. So I'll probably swap the hard drive when I get back home and do the whole reinstall the OS thing with that.
What are you gonna do with the hard drive that's in there?
I don't know.
Maybe you can sell it to me. It's a terabyte, right?
1 terabyte. Yeah.
I'll take it.
All right.
There you go. A deal is made on GameFace, just like that.
I'll hang out and see, make sure it works first. But,
No. Bring it next week or whatever.
Yeah.
But I only have a 500 gig in my PlayStation 4. Although I'm going to get one of these hopefully for Christmas. This is what I'm asking for Christmas from the wife. So we'll see how that goes. I think she may be tired of buying me video game stuff. But then again, she's been doing it for like 15 years. So Gus Bricker, did Sony give you one? Nope. We are not on. I've talked about this on the show before. For whatever reason, we are not on Sony's shipping list. So everything we get from Sony, we pay for ourselves, which is good when we're going to review stuff, I think. So
Dyson XP asks if you could only play one, Mass Effect Andromeda or Horizon Zero Dawn.
No, it's Horizon for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's different. Although it looks like Mass Effect is pretty different, too, though.
Mass Effect is pretty different, but Horizon's just pushing some buttons.
I'm going to reserve the right to change that as I see more of Mass Effect. Because we've only seen, like, 3 minutes of Mass Effect, and we've seen an hour or two of Horizon. But
Mass Effect looks real pretty from, like, an IQ perspective, but it hadn't shown me anything as cool as Horizon Zero Dawn.
It's going to take a lot to get me off that Horizon hype train, let me tell you. Oh, wow, there's a ton of questions in here now. Swanson. What's up, Swanson? I picked up my PlayStation VR this morning. What 3 games should I buy after this show?
I still really like Until...
Thumper, Rez.
I still really like Until Dawn, Rush of Blood.
Really?
Yeah.
I would say Thumper, Rez, and Robinson.
I would say Thumper or Rez, if you're only going to get 3. Those two are too similar for me.
Yeah.
And frankly, if you've already played Rez, look, Rez is awesome in VR, but Thumper's just a little different.
Yeah.
Like, I would say Thumper... I would get Thumper, Until Dawn, and either Robinson or Eve Valkyrie.
Yeah. That's pretty much the top 5 right there we just gave you.
Only if you're in somewhere where Robinson is $40 or less, though. Don't buy a $60.
Yeah, if you're in Europe,
Robinson.
don't take our advice. Don't buy it at $60. Don't 30. I mean, even $40 is pushing it.
Yeah, I mean, $30 with Amazon Prime was the right price, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe a little high, but like I was willing to jump in just to have something to do with my new headset, kind of thing.
Here's one from Nemec. Do you think Nintendo will rejoin E3 with the Switch out on the market? No.
I think they will.
I don't. I really don't think they will. I think when you unveil a piece of hardware with a trailer, with a live-action trailer, I think you've pretty much just left all conventional video game marketing behind.
I think it just means they didn't have anything to show.
I don't agree with that at all, but...
I
mean, obviously, they have
you know
to
a
show.
launch lineup for the Switch we don't know about?
Well, they
Spill
showed
the
a
beans.
Mario game for like 3 seconds. I mean, obviously, there's more of that they can show.
Maybe. They won't even admit that the Skyrim thing is real.
They could have showed us more of Zelda than just the overworld they've shown us for a million times. Dude, can you believe we still not seen Zelda? I mean,
you mean like the character Zelda?
like the game Zelda. Like, all we've seen is the overworld. The same crap over and over and over again. We've never seen a dungeon. Not a clip of a dungeon.
What if there are no dungeons?
There are dungeons. There's no way in hell they're going to make you run around that overworld for 60 hours.
There's no way in hell they're going to make you sail around that ocean for 5 hours looking for Triforce pieces. There's no way in hell
There
they're
were
going to make
dungeons
you
in
run around
that
the game as a wolf for half the game. There's no way in hell they're going to make you swing that stupid remote all over to use the sword all over. They're going to do something.
But there are dungeons.
Probably.
I'll bet you whatever you want to bet that there are dungeons.
I mean,
in
they probably
Breath of the
are,
Wild.
but it's just like, what if,
I'll bet you this, that there are dungeons.
Well,
in
they're
Breath of the Wild.
focusing much harder on the open world idea because that's the new part.
Yeah. But we've seen the same crap over and over again. Like
I'm interested in the fact that, taking what you said more literally, we haven't seen Zelda herself.
Yeah.
We have not seen any other characters.
You're right.
In this
no
game.
Ganon, no anything. I'm starting to get excited for that game, by the way. Let's see. So Matt says yes, I say no on Nintendo rejoining E3. We'll see what happens.
I still don't fully rule out delayed till September big blowout at E3. So we'll see. On January 12th, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of have to. Eric Estrada, 12. Shane, whose idea was it to have puns and one-liners at the end of the reviews back in GT? Also, you forgot Agents of Mayhem is from Deep Silver. Touche. I pretty much set up everything at GT. So, and for the first...
Yeah, you read the lower thirds on this show and you don't know where the puns came from? Really?
That's a good point.
3 guesses.
Yeah. So for the first 4 years at GT, I was the reviews editor. So I wanted to be the reviews editor first to kind of lay down the template of how everything would happen going forward. So, and then I eventually passed it off to Ryan Stevens, and he was the reviews editor for the last few years before everything kind of fell apart at GT. And look, it wasn't rigid or anything like that. Like, people didn't have to add a pun at the end, but I think people had fun with it. And another thing that I kind of started doing when I wrote reviews was, like, the intro paragraph was always wrapped up with a question. And I only did that myself, like when I was writing my own reviews at GT. And then my editorial staff just started doing it, like, all on their own. And still, if you read, like, the reviews at Easy Allies, particularly the ones that Bloodworth writes, his intro always finishes with a question. So, kind of cool.
Justin Horman, what's the game from your childhood you go back to play a little bit every now and then the most?
That's a good question. I was just playing... Here's something really cool, actually. So, Infinite Warfare Zombie Mode. When you die in the Zombies mode, you get sent to this arcade. And in the arcade is pretty much every Atari 2600 game ever. So there are arcade cabinets that you walk up to, and then you can play. And so last night I played like Barnstormer and River Raid. River Raid's a great game, by the way. Like, that's probably the best ever Atari 2600 game, in my opinion. But other than that, like, I just think
I really like Atlantis.
Yeah, that was good too. Yeah, it was actually really good. You're right, that was a really good game. But I don't know, arcade games probably. Just old Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, stuff like that.
Yeah, I go back to... there's 2 main ones I think I go back to the most, and that one would be the arcade game Rolling Thunder, which is kind of a Shinobi game. I remember when Shinobi first came out, I was like, what's this Rolling Thunder ripoff? Rolling Thunder was a Namco game. I ended up liking Shinobi a lot, too, because Shinobi is one of my favorites of all time. But Rolling Thunder, and then every once in a while, because I had an Apple IIe, every once in a while I go, like, there's a site where you can go to, like, it's like Apple II GS stuff, and, like, you can, like, load up a emulator of it, and they have, like, almost every game ever. I will load up a game called Power Bots that no one has ever heard of. Actually, we have enough European viewers that they might know it. It was, I think it was more popular there. It was a game called Power Bots, and I will play through that again, just for old time's sake, because for whatever reason, that was one of the games I loved. And it has never been released again in any form. So if you go find that Apple II GS site and play Power Bots, that's one of the games I like the most.
There are a lot of arcade games that, for me, just hearing them, like Donkey Kong, the sound effect of Mario running, that dunk 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 dunk, like all that stuff, like it takes me right back to being a kid, and very specific memories of very specific arcades that I was hanging around in, like.
There's one thing that it's kind of the reverse of that, but have you ever been to the Fox Hills Mall?
Yes, I have been there.
Down Sepulveda? Okay, so you go down, and you kind of park in the upper level, like the upper level. It's near like where you walk in near the Cinnabon.
Yeah.
Okay, when you walk in right up to the automatic doors in the parking lot, right up as you're about to enter, for whatever reason, it's the mix of the air conditioning exhaust plus the certain location of the food court or whatever. It smells exactly like an arcade from 1983. And like I walk in that door every time I go there just to smell it, just to remember. And like it's funny because like when I smell that and think about that in my head, like the memory my head conjures up always begins with like the sound of jumping over the barrel.
Yeah.
It's funny how that weird, and it's funny how you can tell a fake mix of arcade sounds versus what it actually sounded like.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Back in the day. It's a very specific cacophony.
Yep. Sublevel 28 says you finally play Owlboy. I'm assuming you're asking me. I have not played it, but obviously Matt did. He talked about it in last week's show. Have you played more of it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Still feel the same about it?
Still good. I mean, again, it's part of the problem with games like that is it just makes me sit there and miss Metroid and Castlevania. But at least we have it.
Veneraba, just putting this out there for Shane. Oh, the Urban Dictionary for housed. Derived from schooled or schoolhouse. Schoolhoused, school equals housed. Like I schooled you,
right.
I housed you. I think I like my idea better.
I like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. You got housed. You've got a house dropped on your ass.
It's a much more suburban explanation, I think.
I just think the mental image of the witch's feet sticking out from the side of the house.
It feels like something that would have been like part of like a Nike ad from the 80s or something.
Yeah.
You know, like if someone got horribly dunked on and just a house drops on them kind of thing.
Yeah. I said, don't leave that thing with Shane. It'll get stolen.
Yeah.
I don't leave anything here. That's the crazy part, is that like every time we shoot this show, these guys leave, and I have to pack all this stuff up and take it home with me because I just don't trust leaving like anything here anymore.
Mm-hmm. How far before the show do you get here to set everything up?
Couple hours. Sometimes I don't, and it's a crazy mad scramble trying to get everything set up. Today I got here a couple hours early, but then these jerks showed up late, so I still can't believe we put off that intro, Sam.
I got it.
But we did it. We nailed it. Let's see.
Nemec asks, does the new DualShock 4 feel any better? It feels about the same. It's smoother, I think, on the sides. I do notice the light shining in my eye, because you can see the light through the top of the thing now.
Right. It really shines in your eye?
I notice it.
Wow.
I'm sensitive to like light from out of my eye line, basically. Most people probably won't notice it. Otherwise, it's pretty much feels the same. I haven't used it in a game that tracks it in like the VR thing. I wonder if it tracks better now that it has the light on the top, so it kind of has a better idea if I'm holding it wrong.
Yeah.
Because I did notice that on some of the VR games that like track the controller, like sometimes it would lose the controller because I hold it wrong, or I hold it down, and I guess the light they can't see the light on the edge, so light on the top might help with that.
Right.
Because I guess I'm one of the people that holds it weird.
I think most people hold controllers like that if they're relaxed or whatever.
But Robinson doesn't do that, so I have no frame of reference yet. But it feels fine.
Let's see, one last question from Zero Kaiser. Does the PS4 Pro affect remote play? Should work the same, right?
I would think.
Yeah.
I pretty much never use it, so.
Yeah, I've used remote play like twice.
But I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if it supports it, and I assume it does.
It should, yeah.
It should. So, I mean, it uses the same OS. It should be the same thing.
You would think.
But Sony seems to have finally stepped away from the Vita, judging by the free games for PS Plus this month.
Yeah.
There is no Vita one.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, wait, there's not a Vita one at all?
I don't think there's any Vita games.
Really?
This month. Yeah.
They finally cut it off.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was no Vita. It was just PS3 and PS4.
Well, I think. Oh, really? Because what I was about to say is that sometimes, like, they separate the PS3 and Vita from the PS4. Like, they'll put out a trailer just for the PS4, and you may think that there aren't any Vita and PS3, but there actually are.
Well, no, I always look.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see any Vita. I might be wrong. I don't know.
Nolan Elric says it supports wireless N, which is faster, so it might be better. Yep. All right, so that's going to do it for GameFace episode 67. Thanks for sticking around with us on the stream and asking some great questions. Obviously, we'll be talking about Dishonored 2 next week. Wish we could have talked about it today. But you know, with Bethesda's new review policy.
It'd be an hour and a half into it. Well, maybe I couldn't because I'm using it playing PC.
That's right. That's a good point.
When I get home, we'll see if this is going to work or not.
Yep. So, yeah, we'll definitely be talking about it next week on the show. Obviously, Matt, you'll probably have a lot more experience with your PlayStation 4 Pro.
Well, I'm basically going to take it home, swap the hard drive out, and start the transfer from my old PS4, and I'll probably try to play Dishonored while that's going on, because apparently it takes a while.
Yeah, and yeah, what if you want to get your report on that after you spent
a lot of work just to save PT.
Yep. That's really what it comes down
to. Pretty much, yeah. Like, I'm probably going to delete almost everything on that hard drive except PT and just transfer it all
I don't blame you. There's really no reason. I mean, I have my hard drive full of stuff that I haven't touched in, like, forever, so
yeah, same.
Probably good for me to do a little purging.
And, like, it's just, I have a very fast connection. It's probably faster to download the things again rather than to transfer them through the cable. Because I know on GAF people were saying, like, it was taking hours and hours. So
it took me.
I mean, it's better than not being able to do it.
It took me like 8 hours to install Robinson the Journey yesterday.
Is it that big? I thought it was
it's not.
6 gigs.
It's like 6 gigs. And I finally got so sick of it that I just shut down my PlayStation 4 and turned it back on, and it went drip.
Oh, yeah. The other thing you can do...
PlayStation Network is such garbage.
I don't have much problem with it, but if you do run into a problem with that, one of the things I found is pause the download, go to the option, the settings of the system, do the network test, which will like reconnect, do the disconnect and reconnect you, and then go and resume it. And a lot of times you get connected to a better download server somehow.
Crazy.
So
it's not like we're paying for it or anything.
No, nothing like that. I mean, at least you couldn't complain on the PS3 because it's like, well, it's free.
It's free.
What do you want?
It changes a little bit when you're paying the money. So,
but it's. We'll see how it goes.
We'll hear from you next week. So everybody have an excellent night, an excellent weekend. We'll see you next Thursday. GameFace is up and out.